we're good. But it's stormy as heck has been during the day, so it's been like sandstorms here. So it's
Oh,
yeah. So when you go out, you get your eyes full of dust and sand and stuff. So yeah, and so but now it's getting better. It's starting to calm down a bit in the evening here. So yeah.
I was telling Les, Alan was coming on, but now he can't, so we're good.
You're stuck with me.
Yeah, that's all right.
And me.
Yeah, that's true. And Anna, we can talk about like planar dragons and stuff.
Yes.
I am gonna just listen for most of this session. That's okay.
What? This is not the wrong side of the map. The outer plains. Have you been to the outer plains?
Yeah, but only in the course of like an adventure, like Fed events which is on the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thanks, Alsamine.
So you haven't dug deep into planar theory and how the multiverse and D&D physics and how that interacts with magic and all of that?
Hold up, I thought we were hoping for a zombie
I've been trying to quit,
campaign.
so yeah.
All right,
You
here's
haven't
what we're doing.
succeeded in the last 45 years
to other planets long ago, taking with them
Well,
all
just,
forms of
like,
advanced technology.
I ran
Earth
Q1,
survivors scrape by with historic
that's
tools
my
as
limit
weird
of
phenomena plague abandoned
the
Well, I
abyss.
haven't been
sites.
that
Witnesses
often to
report
it, but
seeing
it's
glowing lights and
such
the
a
dead
big
rising from
part
their graves. Amidst
of
the chaos,
Germany,
three
what's up?
strangers
magic
will meet in
and
a
all
dim
of
bar.
that, so to
a
speak.
veteran
So
zombie slayer,
senses
a
and a whole
disgraced
bunch of
general
stuff.
out for
So,
revenge,
yeah.
the space
Yeah,
mercenary
it's
sent to
cool, and
investigate
that's
the
why
power
I
plants.
figured
Describe your
let's tackle
characters.
this tonight, and
Yeah, it's a
How
good
do
topic.
you do
Love it.
that?
And like I said, it
I
opens
have
up
the
some
right
potential.
tools
Like
for
I
the
want to
job.
bring up those articles about planar plants, planar
Yeah.
plant life, and
Oh,
planar
yes.
pestilence.
awesome.
Mhm. That is great.
So
I'm all for it.
And I know that, like I said, some of the deep lore behind the lore, like where some of the ideas about certain planes come from, delves into like Western esotericism and Eastern traditions and theosophy and things like that. So I can lay a little framework as to how that worked its way into literature.
Cool.
That Gygax in turn.
That's great because this is such a cool topic that touches so many different aspects of role playing, from its foundations to rules and all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean one of the things I love is, and I'll bring this up, the Planar Plant article discusses the difference in the relationship between arcanists and druids when dealing with these kinds of plants,
Oh, okay.
because they aren't of this world, right?
Yep.
They don't belong here.
The dungeon,
And they can have
Cool.
potentially devastating effects on ecosystems and the world in general.
Yep.
Hope everyone's well out there today as we kick off this week of 4 streams.
From stillness, the mad mage is.
I don't know how many I'll have next week being at
From
Page,
countless voices
because I don't know how often I'll be
that
streaming there just because of all the variables. But
Yeah, this is a big stream week for me too. It was
will never escape.
yesterday was on Guild Superior, today is Legend Lore, Friday is my stream, and Sunday Gavin. So yeah.
I'm trying to turn this down a little bit. I'm having trouble.
Unsurprisingly, I'm doing no streaming this week. Sorry, I have to joke about that.
Well,
cool.
you should do some streaming then. You're doing today, you should do some more. Yeah.
Notice the silence. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. Wow, it's loud.
Let me make sure I've got everything open.
Hey, okay, it's good to see you. What we got here? Whoops, I just hit the same button again. Let me hit that one. That's wrong. That one. Yep. What we got? 6:51. All right, 2 minutes. I'll bring up stuff. Let's see. Everyone good here? Let me check. I'm triple checking all my background stuff. I always feel like I forgot something. You know, I'll start the giveaway up now while I'm here. Doing we'll do a gazetteer reprint. If we get a little hype going, I'll add something to it like I normally do.
Okay,
Boom.
so we're all ready to go. So I got about 3 minutes into it so far. We got the base, we got the roof.
Awesome.
We have a few smaller components.
Good, man. Best of luck in that.
Flatboards here for the loft. And then I got
always good.
A little itty bitty window parts there. And then I have a hood for the flue up on the roof. And this could be resin printed or FDM printed. And then lastly, we have a little ragtag door to put on the front with a filament hinge. All right. In terms of prepping the models, sometimes these little holes where the filament's supposed to run through can get clogged up on your resin doors. Sometimes the resin will just settle in there when it's washing out.
Let's see here.
Sometimes
all shout outs are done, I think. I don't know.
A little off.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
you need to clean it out. If you do,
See
you
it.
can use a drill bit. 5/64.
Some guy on Threads was like, I'm 2 years away from been playing D&D for 50 years. So that means he's been playing for 48.
So if I have a door
And
there,
I said to him, hey, well, you got me by a year. I've been playing since for 47. Oh, what's up, Dave? And
Hello.
Campaigning.
Hello.
Thank you for
45.
yesterday. It was awesome. Yep.
Anyone die?
And nope. I didn't even take damage.
Nice.
But I did 1 kill. Yep.
In the melee, you shot in the melee combat though, didn't you?
No, I sneak attacked.
Oh, there you go.
So we got those
I didn't use a ranged weapon at all.
plenty of room now for our filament.
There was very little combat. We only had combat at the end. Yep.
Cool.
But it was a lot of fun.
First thing I'm going to be doing is
That's
applying
funny, babe.
brown
Yeah, so
onto the timber
he said
frames.
the 45-year campaign was
And I'm going to use a
Homeric?
size brush.
like
I don't
Homeric.
care.
I was like,
Yeah.
I was like,
Brown
oh, okay, well, that's,
everywhere
no one's ever said that
for
before.
this first part.
Dave, it was straight up
Practice
self-defense. They started
So
it.
there's my
Yep.
brown again. Kind of on the lighter side.
Anna
of the
murdered a
tone.
guy, according to the DM. So
I don't
Yeah.
want
gotta
so
believe.
much
Yeah.
I gotta believe
that
someone.
filling
Well,
in the
Dave was a
details, of
DM, so I
course.
guess he's the most objective
some
in
of
the
the-
Yeah.
bunch
We,
here.
we have to
That's
break
better.
into a
You
musical
definitely
number here and do.
don't want
He had
to
it coming. He had it coming.
waste your
There you
Well,
go.
time.
he
Oh,
never
Chicago.
he never saw what was coming, but he was
It'll
the
actually take away
Still,
from
he
you
had
in
it
the
coming.
end.
Whoops,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to shout myself out there.
It's gonna
I
be
hit a
some
wrong
waste of
button.
time. You can go do something else.
What's that line from Unforgiven? We all got it
Do
coming.
Make sure you
We all got
kinda
it coming.
hit the tops and the bottoms of your timbers. Okay. Don't just paint the face
Huh.
of these things.
Well,
'Cause they're
this
not
is
gonna be
weird.
Coming back later.
Oh, there it goes. I couldn't change scenes. I hit the button. Pay no attention to the spinning shields.
came up with that idea.
Who, me?
Oh, they don't.
Oh,
Spin
now they
that much.
stopped. That was
Yeah,
weird.
exactly. They
Oh,
don't
because
spin
you
it.
know why? I just crashed.
Uh-oh, crashed.
We have crash. Yep,
Man,
I crashed. All right, everyone. 3 minutes. Be right
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, you rebooting.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Now it's going. Now it's going.
Oh, okay. Well, there you
I
go.
don't know what the hell's going on. All right. I'm not going to be switching screens a lot. Yeah, isn't that crazy? All right, I'm here. Diamond Lake, yes. Diamond Lake is an all, yes. In fact, Diamond Lake, in a trivia question, is the original location for what legendary establishment in my campaign? I'll probably crash. I'll stay away from the musical stuff. Alright, the video's being wonky. Yeah, I think it's... No. I want to see if I can get to this main screen here. I'm trying to switch and it's not. Yes! Lord Forth, the tickling feather. Wow, I pulled that one right out of somewhere. Nice. That's where Diamond Lake originally came from. Alright, we're coming live. Because something's going on weird. I'm probably not going to be switching screens much, so but we'll figure this out. So welcome, everyone, to Wednesday night. And a topic that I'm going to keep quiet for most of because I turned my light on. I knew I'd see there was something. But we're gonna have some fun with this, and I got Les with me, and I got Anna with me. Wow, it's not letting me, darling. Your post,
Uh-oh.
I'm allowing it, and it's not letting me allow it in chat either. That is weird. The OKS GM, I'm always breaking something, laughing out loud. I hit a allow button, and it's just bouncing back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let me first say, because so many ask,
Weird.
I'm 70 miles away from the fire. So I have
Yes.
literally the whole LA metro area between us and the fire. So we're really good here.
Weird
So,
stuff.
yeah.
That's good to hear.
It's windy as heck though, but otherwise it's good. Yeah.
So I was going to share something via switching screens. I don't know if I should, but two things. So Todd had.
Thank you, Bones.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, Todd in distance. Stashwick had. You could see smoke in the distance, but he said that they
I was
were
just
okay
going to say
still.
he is probably like within 10 miles or so.
Yeah.
I have friends who had to evacuate like earlier today. They had to basically take the car and run from their house. So yeah.
Right, but he did have an announcement. Has anyone seen the announcement? I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it now, or if I should. So,
was it some new project or something?
well, kind of, yes. So he is, and it's announced now. He is he's in the next Marvel TV series Vision.
Oh,
cool.
He
cool.
is a bad guy, which he always plays a good
Well,
bad guy.
that's his speciality, isn't
Yeah,
it?
so he's a bad guy in it, which is cool. So that's why he won't be at GaryCon this year, because he goes and he's going to be in um,
Somewhere shooting, I guess.
London
or...
for 5.5 months shooting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just so you're aware that that's the reason. Hey, Sparky, that he will not be there. So we'll see if I crash. Everyone, system's acting really wonky. I just had a Windows update, and I'm wondering if that's what it was. That's Bjork and everything, but we'll see. So, Anna, thoughts on this topic? I don't think we've done demons, devils.
No, we haven't done much. And
Yeah.
I was thinking,
Yeah.
why did you only use the inner and the outer planes? What about the other ones?
The transitive and
Yeah, exactly.
Demi and
No, I'm just being
Because the
facetious.
titles only can go so big.
Exactly. We can exactly we can cover those too. So that's fun. Yeah. I think this topic is long overdue. It's a good to
Cool.
cover it. And I also think this is it touches so many aspects of the game that I think is really cool. It touches these kind of the roots of the game with, like, in fantasy literature, fairy tales, folklore, and stuff like that on one end. But it also ties heavily into, well, if you want to, it can tie heavily into the crunchy bits, the rules, character building, magic, weapons, artifacts, monsters, and shebang, so to speak. So it kind of touches the whole gamut of fantasy, from the crunchy rules bit to the lore and the backstories and all of that. So this makes it multi-dimensional, so to speak. It affects your game and your campaign in many different ways at once.
No, Dale, I have it though. I have the book down in I get the Necromancer Games one, I believe.
Yeah, I haven't used the City of Brass yet.
Because there's two different City of Brasses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of.
City
Yeah.
of Brasses.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, there's Rob Kuntz's, there's Frog Gods,
Mhm.
and there's
Huso.
the guy, Yep, Huso has one.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Alan.
variety of.
Alan was going to try and get on Growy, but something came up and he cannot now on this topic. So, but it's going to be a fun one there. So, Les, what are your thoughts?
Sure. To begin with, I think that picking up on something Anna said, there's something when you look at the early discussion of planes in Dragon Magazine and the DMG, and then the Deities and Demigods, and then in Dragon again, you see the development of these ideas, a lot of which are cribbed from pulp literature and turn of the century literature, which in turn was mining the kind of occult revival at the end of the 19th century, where you had like the kind of interest in occultism and esotericism, where you had the Golden Dawn, and you had theosophy, and you had all these kind of movements and groups forming, looking at this sort of thing. And so it goes all the way back, to the medieval stuff, and then sometimes even further back to classical, or the classical period, or ancient India. So it's kind of interesting to see how some of these ideas about planes and about the body/soul's relationship to planes. Kind of was used and codified in D&D, and I agree with Anna also. Mechanics play a big part of it.
Okay.
There's that kind of idea, and this will be touched on again, I think, that goes back to some of the I think 2nd century Hermetic writings, the idea as above, so below, where you have it's not only that the stars and the solar system influence the world, it's that the otherworldly orders and spiritual orders are reflected in the order of the world, if that makes sense.
Okay.
That there's a feedback between that which is above and that which is below.
Yeah,
There's a kind of overlap or similarity between the
Yeah.
two. Correspondences is how Swedenborg later kind of described a similar kind of notion.
Yeah.
And to me, that's one of the key things. I like playing with that in my campaign. The idea that the characters have these conflicts, right, on the Prime, and specifically in the world of GREYHAWK. But these conflicts are paralleled, or they're parallels or reflections of other conflicts that are going on that have a multi-universal or a multiversal scale to them, if that makes sense. So the stakes, it starts off and it's just a personal battle, or it's a battle against a monster, right? But as the character develops, you see more overlaps and certainly perhaps more interest from extraplanar creatures, if you see what I mean. This person is becoming a player in things. This person is someone with influence and power, and I want to destroy them, or I want to bend them to my will, or get them on my side. So you wind up with a scenario that's kind of reminiscent of some elements that you find in Elric, the Moorcock stuff. You find elements that are similar to some Howard stories where Conan winds up meeting justice, even though that wasn't his original intention. So perhaps he's serving some higher purpose unwittingly.
Okay.
And I kind of like those ideas. I like the way that feeds into, and it can create dramatic irony, and it can create tension. So those are some of my initial thoughts on the subject. Also, I think we should maybe clarify, we're not going to pick through every plane, right?
No,
And
there
every
are
level of
many.
every plane.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So this is just a kind of general overview and how things work, and maybe touch on a few.
This is and my key bar is barely moving either. This is going to be a challenge tonight. So just to even switch screens.
We'll see.
So,
You have you have the manual, the original 1st edition manual of the planes there, which was an amazing book when it came out. It was fantastic. It's, to me now in hindsight, is a little bit on the engineering side, so to speak, because it's very crunchy, very engineery, and in that sense very mechanical. And then you have the I don't think there was one for a 2nd edition, but 3rd edition came a new edition of the Manual of the Planes, which is a little bit less crunchy and a little bit more story, a little bit more blood wars and stuff like that, so to speak. And then comes the 4th D&D 4th edition, when they did that's cute, when they did an overhaul of the cosmology and changed it and stuff, because the cosmology between the 1st and 3rd edition is almost identical. There's very little changes to D&D cosmology. And then 4th edition comes that introduces 2 cool realms, the Feywild and the Shadowfell, which is really, really cool. I love that from 4th edition. That added more to the transitory. I've tweaked them even further, but we can talk about that later.
I made it to the other. I may just stay on this page.
Yeah,
that way I can throw stuff up. I may just stay here.
That's much easier. Just stay, because it's only me and Les anyway.
I think I'm just going to stay here.
That's much better.
Yeah. So cool. So
get a couple of other books while you discuss here.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, for me, out there, except for like individual adventures, like you have. Hey, Clater, your mini did go out the other day, by the way. You have adventures like in Dragon. Before there was even a dungeon, there's an adventure with Githyank guy called Fed Fencer.
Yep.
Right, and all right, cool. We're going to the ethereal plane. I didn't go back. You know, it's just like my guys are like, we're just not, it's cool, but it's not like we're gonna do full adventuring there. And I think that came out well before this book came out. Yeah, 87. I
Yeah.
think that was before that book. I think that was 83, Fed Events or 82. So yeah, you have, and it's what's what's the creature on this called again?
That's an astral dreadnought.
Astral
Yeah.
Dreadnought. That's it. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but like we can go through this and just show. This is if you can get one of these in good condition, hardback for less than $100, you're doing something here, right?
Yep.
It's they're not.
I also, I'm going to throw this out here there because I think it's worth noting. Anna gave a nice, succinct overview of some of the shifts that have taken places over the decades.
Yeah.
But one of the things I like to play with in mine is the idea that you wind up, when you look at most of these source books, there are contradictory bits of lore and contradictory bits of cosmology, right? That's entirely fine. And I actually exploit that in my campaign. If you want to, one of the things I would suggest is, how much do you think the average person on Oath knows about the planes?
0.
And even the people who have dabbled in it, do you think that they necessarily have the full picture? They may think they do, but do they necessarily know all the workings and all the machinations and politics and catastrophes and triumphs that take place there? There's always going to be slant. There's that I mentioned previously when we were going over books. There's that one book in that list of or that GREYHAWK, one of the GREYHAWK Grimoire articles that mentions one of Igwilf, a book that's attributed, I should say, to Igwilf, right?
Okay.
But what it does is it's describing the abyss and how to travel in the abyss and how to negotiate in the abyss. The catch being that the handwriting is very small and cramped, and the article implies that the authors may not be Igwilf, it may be something written by demons to screw with people.
Okay.
And I kind of like that idea where you think you have certain knowledge, but you walk into it. And I'm not saying that I'm saying a DM should definitely have some idea of what they think is going on, right? They should have some definite grasp on things. The players, on the other hand, they may know something may be factual. It may not. It may be partially true. It may not. And also, I'd point out that many of these entities, gods, planars, solars, demons, it's not in their interest to have someone know everything about them.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So there's something else to keep in mind as we go ahead.
Yeah. We had a good question here. So what
Yeah,
about?
I have no idea on that.
Yeah. What about the Shadowfell? Do they replace the negative and part in? Not directly, because the Shadowfell and the Feywild are more like transitory places. They are places where you can go to things. The shadow touches a lot of things, but in some ways they did, because what happened in fourth edition, if I read this correctly, is more like the positive and negative energy they kind of cease to become planes, and they become more like a factor that weighs in on other planes, not a place you can go to. So
Right.
and they're not described as places you can go to one way or the other. And I kind of like that more. That they're like physical forces, like gravity and electromagnetic spectrum, or the nuclear force or something in the real world, so to speak. There are something
Well,
that
yeah,
affects.
here's the list of them
Yeah.
all. The
Mhm.
clauses
I
and
think
all that.
I think
Yeah.
I should also interject here just to point out that in terms of original published GREYHAWK material, right, or AD&D material, you had the plane of shadow listed as one of the inner planes as early as 1980.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
separate from the prompt positive and negative.
Yep.
And Gygax later developed that idea in one of the Gord books. I want to say it was City of Hawks.
Not sure.
Where he goes into, it's called the Shadow Realm there. And we know from the upcoming material, but one of the blurbs that Gygax did in Dragon Magazine, that I think he and Steve Winter were working, particularly Steve Winter, were working on a setting, kind of campaign book or set or something dealing with the plane of shadow.
Mhm.
But of course, that's one of those projects that never panned out.
Yeah.
But the way that the plane of shadow functions in AD&D is a little bit different. But though it later gets, I think Grubb retcons it into being a demi-plane on the ethereal, and there's some other stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of ways you can play with the plane of shadow.
Let's.
Yeah. And oh,
I was going to say, for the layman here, why don't we explain this real quick?
yeah, we have. Yeah.
Yes.
For the prime material and like because it is a little weird.
Oh,
So,
yeah. It's
And
a little.
it gets weirder the deeper you look. which is
Right,
cool.
right.
Yeah, and also this is the first edition. It's a good starting point because it's kind of very categorized things and it's clear cut and you can go from here to there and they're like little boxes and stuff. That becomes much more fluid when we get to this and the modern.
Right.
And in
Yep.
some ways I like the fluidity because it's more like fantasy-esque, so to speak. But it's good to have this because this is like a this is like D&D physics.
Yeah.
And you have little boxes and connections and stuff, and then you need to kind of take something from here. But yeah, so we have the prime material plane where you reside normally, so to speak, and then you have the what they call the inner planes that are the material planes in that sense that they are the elemental planes, and they can either be 4 or 8 or 16 depending on how you slice and divide them up in quasi, para, and all of
Right.
that, so to speak. So you have the four basic elementals, and then you can switch them up into steam and ash and a whole bunch of other
But
stuff.
they're connected by the ethereal plane.
Yeah, that exactly. That's something you could. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
'cause
you can in the early ones it is, and here it becomes much more fluid, so to speak.
Right.
So you can simply say, well, you go to a volcano and then you go to fire and stuff. So
Right.
and the third, that's what they started to introduce in third edition. It became more story based than D&D physics, so to speak.
And also with that, Jay, I'd also add, of course, you go back to Gygax's 1983 article, and he kind of complicates the picture by showing you some illustrations of what planes would look like at different angles.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
And Sam, that's perfectly correct. That in the beginning, everything that was connected, but that kind of makes it, yeah. So you had like the good aligned and evil aligned, or positive and negative, fire and all of that. And then some of them were more positive and others were more negative and stuff. And then you have the astral plane where you can travel out to what they call the Great Wheel. And now we introduce things when you go to the alignment, so to speak. So now we're
Yeah.
in the outer planes where you have the whole big cosmology wheel, where you have all the alignment, where you have the everything from the seventh heaven to abyss and hell and Acheron, Gehenna, and all those planes that we know from Greek mythology, Viking-esque, and that ties into real world mythology, Olympus and Nirvana, Seventh Heavens. They've had different names in different editions. In the
Happy hunting
beginning,
grounds.
exactly. In the beginning,
There
they
you
had they tied into deities and demigods, and they were very tied into real world religions. And then they started to distance themselves from that. So several of these have had different names in different editions.
Oh boy.
So they have multiple names, which I think is cool that they have different names. And then they also have layers and sub-layers. You have the seventh heaven, the 666 layers of the abyss, the 9 hells, etc.
Yeah.
And they can differ in what they look like and what they are. Some of them are hot, some of them are cold, some of them are full of fire, poison, or whatever it is. So there's all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah, it was neat.
Yeah.
And to us as laymen, as people in high school, even we found it complicated.
Yeah, but it's fun because this
Yeah.
ties into cool stories. This is where your soul go when you die, and
Yeah,
when your
true,
character
true.
dies, and stuff like this. This is a playground you can, and I take this as a physical lesson that you can then tweak into cool stories that you want to use, so to speak. So don't take this at face value right up the. Take this as a physicist trying to, with equations, explain the universe for you, and then you can take these things and you can turn them into cool stories. And that's basically what they started to do in
Cool,
the
great.
3rd edition manual of the plane. And in Planescape, they tried to do a whole bunch of cool stuff with that. And then in fourth edition, they story made it more into a story, so to speak, and many stories. So yeah,
Just looking here to see if there's anything.
yeah.
There's some, yeah. So it's a good. I mean, it's a really good book.
Oh yeah, it's a
Good.
fantastic book.
Yeah,
And we also have to remember this was the
yeah,
first real attempt to gamify this and to
yeah.
put it into D&D. So Jeff Grubb did a fantastic job. And we also have to see now 30 years later, almost 40 years later, most of this book still stands. You can read this and use it with 5th edition D&D or Pathfinder or any game. So this one was very, yeah. And
And
Planescape was interesting because Planescape took parts of this and turned it into a
I have
campaign
some
setting with
Planescapes here.
factions and cool places, and invented the sigil, and it used what they were originally called at the concordant opposition, meaning the hub of this great wheel, what's in the center. And then it was called the Outlands, and it had different names. And then it took that and made that into its own campaign setting where you can go to all the other stuff, and it influences, and you took the hub of the world, the center of the multiverse kind of thing, and made it into a campaign setting.
Yeah, Pat. So that's true. What it is that the nodes are actually connected to each elemental plane. The
Yeah,
four elemental planes
yeah,
and Temple of Elemental Evil.
yeah. So you have, yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
And that was one of the earliest introductions of planes and stuff in D&D, I think, Temple of Elemental Evil. That was one of the early ones that was really going. And Ethereal Plane doesn't have that much, so to speak, but it's there.
Well,
it's also there
yeah.
are articles about it, and also
Mhm.
there is the oil of etherealness, which
Exactly. It ties in more mechanically than thematically in classic D&D. There's very little adventure set there. There are no
Well, the Cthulhu
famous
guy
places.
like claimed to rule like the ethereal plane,
No,
right?
isn't that the astral?
I thought it was the ethereal. Am I wrong on that?
I think it's the
it's
astral
astral.
because
Is
yeah,
it?
it's the astral. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And the astral has way more cool
See how
stuff
much I
in
know?
it. So, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and because what they do is that they have special swords where they can cut the cord. But we get to
Yeah.
when we get to planar travel in a little bit here. So yeah.
Yeah, the Demon Web is not a layer of the abyss. It's three. It's three layers of the abyss interwoven, if I recall correctly. Old
Yeah,
in
I think so.
Q1.
Yeah,
In
it's
Q1.
deep one, and then
And
layer
then
66 or somewhere
yeah.
around there.
Uh huh.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So.
Yep.
Hey, Coco. Yeah, it's a lot of interesting stuff that'll come out of this.
Yep.
But like where you're saying, well, how does this relate to Greyhawk? And let's take a look at that. I'm just trying to find something.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's.
let's go to a Mike article from his site.
Mhm.
So let me shout out Mike Greyhawk here. Too many buttons. All right, so let's go here. All right, this is from January of 2021. So this is what, 4 years ago. Let's see if I can get this to center. All right, Greyhawk deity realms.
Yep.
So, yep. How do you guys handle extra-dimensional containers and airplanes like bags holding portables? There are sources of data. Yeah, well, they're not going to work. Also, all weapons are 2+ lower, and a lot of spells. In the manual of the planes, there's a lot of
Yep.
spells that function
Yep.
differently, and there's a whole list of them. So,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to talk about Hawktails a little bit later because that ties in the planes, and D&D physics plays a much bigger role in the whole rule system.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Yep. Yep. Mhm.
So, good.
no, I was just going to throw out there, in terms of the ethereal plane, of course, it does have a kind of direct tie, at least in terms of one of the personalities there, who would be Solondril, right? And I'm getting like
What? I love
exactly
it.
Solondril. Salandril is, I believe, connected to Elaine Mystica,
That I
and
don't know. Yep.
is a god of a hero deity rather, who is a keeper of records and cycles.
Yeah, that you got me. Less that something I have never heard.
Originated in Dragon Magazine and then was
Okay.
mentioned in Liberation of Jeff. And looking at a bibliography here, comes up in Blood of Heroes, in the Living Greyhawk Journal, and in the Living Greyhawk official listing of deities. So
Okay.
Slandril, who resides on the Ethereal,
See you, Dave.
has definite ties to the setting as well.
Yeah,
And that goes back to second edition. So
yeah, I've never even heard that name before.
I've heard the name, but I can't
haven't.
remember exactly where what the
yeah.
story is
Okay.
about it. So yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Mike did a great job here.
yeah, definitely.
Putting together like the realm. You have your deity here, and then you have your realm, right? The general alignment of the deity. It could be standard Earth, and then the home home name of their home location. So if you look at Lendor, for example, on the plane of Mechanus, and then his home realm is called the Wheel of Time, which is kind of neat. So a lot of you can play this up. There's a lot of. I think there should be more that are Earth based, but and this just shows you how the deities grew and grew and grew and grew.
And I just want to throw out, since Sam
Please.
threw it out there, and he's correct. There's of course speculation that Dungeon Land and some of the other places are pockets on the Ethereal. Because when you go in a little further in, it's posited that I actually like this idea that the demi-planes basically are kind of, I don't want to say carved into, but made from almost as fluctuations or pockets within the Ethereal.
So, and they cross over into Earth whenever they want to appear?
Well, the Ethereal overlaps with Oath, so that would make sense. It's like you carve a pocket. You're wearing a suit, and then you have a pocket within the suit, if that makes sense.
Okay. Huh. I guess that would explain, why they're never in any specific place, for long periods of time.
Well, some are and some aren't. Some have fixed openings, some less so. And some have openings that collapse, or the opening is contingent on the alignment of stars or whatever else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gates should be some of them are, exactly. They're very different in nature. Some of them are there at certain times. Some can be opened open with ceremony, some open naturally. And you also have both the ethereal, the Fae and the shadow planes are these that when the conditions are right, they automatically become close to. And I have the elemental planes the same way. If you jump into a volcano, you will end up in elemental fire if you can. They gates
don't die.
Exactly, if you don't die. Yes.
Yeah.
It's nothing about surviving, and the same thing with the Feywild and the shadow plane and stuff. They are transitory. They're openings to others.
So. Oh, they're not demi-planes. They're alternate prime material.
It depends. It's they're alternate prime materials, but we have to be careful because when you read the manual of the planes, it gets into alternate primes.
Yeah,
I'm talking about grubs, and that's different from a demi-plane.
Yeah.
Right, here it is.
Like, for example, Oath, Yarth, Earth, all those alternate Earths, right, are alternate prime material planes.
Right.
Whereas this is more like, I've used the idea of a pocket advisedly. Like I said, the ethereal overlaps with the planes, right? But imagine that within something that's overlapping, something that's tight to you, you have a pocket. So yeah, as Sam points out, they're not full prime material planes.
I have them more as ethereal is like a dimension that you can go into, so to speak. That it's part of the physical. It's just like time is one dimension, and the ethereal is another one. So it's
essentially that's kind of what it is. I mean, going back to, and I'm going to have to do this right quick. again, these classical kind of ideas, you had the elements and then you had quintessence, or the fifth element, right? And this was sometimes identified as ether.
Yeah, well, it's like dark
And
energy
so,
today. It's one of these things
They just proved
physicists
dark energy doesn't
invented.
exist, Anna.
Exactly. Yeah, it's one of these things they give a name because they don't know. So they have
Yeah.
to, and they still want to try and calculate with the unknown to try and
Yeah.
figure it out.
well, in
So
this
it's, yeah.
case, a lot of the philosophers and cosmologists did think that they had a grasp on what it was.
Oh yeah.
And so what eventually happens, and this happens with the idea of the astral plane in a different way too, where the astral plane was seen as a kind of spiritual realm, right?
Hmm.
And it has correspondences in Jewish mysticism, Hinduism. There are various mystical
Well,
traditions have
every,
overlaps with
yeah,
this,
I mean, every
and
superstition deals with the things we can't know that are only partially real and stuff, which is
you have
cool.
kind of the
Yeah.
idea of your spirit, your truer self, your spiritual self being able to project, right? You find
Yeah.
this in theosophy, you find this in a lot of like Algernon Blackwood,
Hmm.
and to some extent some of H.P. Lovecraft's Dreamland stories kind of touch on a similar idea. But at any rate, the one of the ideas that you had circulating through this period was that idea of the silver cord, which is almost like an umbilical cord
Yeah.
connecting your
Yeah.
physical self to that astral self,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if it's cut, you're screwed.
Hmm. I think Sam touches on I think an important point, that or interesting point at least, and that is true elementals can't get to the outer planes. I have it that way because
Yeah.
the inner planes I have are literally the planet itself. That's so the plane of fire is simply created where there is enough lava and heat and all of that, so to speak, and fire. So the interior of the planet is, the center of it is the plane of fire, and the water is where the oceans, where there's enough water, then the plane of water comes, and the air the same way, and the earth the same way. So I literally have the planet itself is the inner planes. So there you have the connection, and that means that in there it's as far away from the outer planes you can. And also I have that planes are they're different in nature. Some of them are physical planes, like the prime material planes and the elemental planes. They are physical. They actually do exist. But then you have metaphysical planes. They are partially real, and then you have mental planes that aren't real at all. They're just imagined places. And the difference, the physical places you can travel to, you can walk there, you can fall into them or fly there or something like that. Metaphysical planes are kind of interesting because you can either project yourself there. You can kind of imagine you go there, use magic and transport your mind there and get an avatar that acts for you, and you get like a silver cord, like the astral plane, for instance.
I do worry that we're jumping a bit ahead of ourselves.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to yeah, I
some
just
of our
wanted
audience
to
might not know what the outer planes are yet.
except,
And
well, we touched
so
on them. So but I want to keep people to keep that in mind when we have the discussion, because they are different. They can be
yeah,
different in
absolutely.
nature, so to speak. So some of them are mental, some of them are metaphysical, meaning they are a little bit of both, and some of them are elemental, meaning they do exist, and that ties into magic and how that works and stuff.
Or
So,
you can also think of it in terms of the elemental world in the same way. How do I put this?
yeah,
The elements and quasi and para elements are they're constituent parts in a way of the material plane, right?
yeah.
But they aren't, unlike say humans or other or similar things. They don't really have souls per se. They are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
The elementals are beings of those planes. So it makes sense in a way that they're
Yeah.
kind of bound closer to the inner planes.
Yeah, and there you touch into another another thing, meaning you can use all this stuff, the metaphysical, the physical, the planes and stuff, and you can tie in and make your own D&D physics. That's what I did with Hawktails. You can tie this into how magic works and how souls work, what happens when you die, and etc. etc. You can play with this extensively, meaning you can have all sorts of cool stuff. What happens when you sell your soul to a devil or a demon lord or something like that? Will your god come and help you when you're dead and stuff like that, and resurrection and all stuff like this? You can tie this into the cosmology and how the planes work, what the gods can do, and it's fluid because it's only hinted at different, that there's like some a little bit of rules mechanics here and there. There's some limitations on some spells and stuff, but no one has sat down and tried to do it systematically.
I think
And yeah,
just throwing out there, I think Sam summed it up nicely when he said that's the distinction. The inner planes are
yeah,
physical, even the
hmm
ethereal,
yeah,
which is proto stuff.
hmm
The outer planes are mental, including the astral, which is proto thought.
That's why you
And
have
I
the
think the
word.
astral is also that which connects, if that makes sense. It's the type, it's that type of thought
yeah,
or mental proto thought that connects the inner with the outer.
hmm
In other words, this world with the world of its gods, demons, and devils and such,
yeah,
or these worlds.
hmm
Yeah, here's your spell summary with
yeah.
changes that are made and everything in there.
Exactly. So it was already in this one, in this man book. You had how the planar magic and how the planes work, and this is like D&D physics, and that tied into it. And then it was kind of worked upon, advanced, and made a little bit cooler in this book, and and then they dumbed it down, but made it cooler and dumbed it down in fourth edition, and in fifth edition they dumbed it down a bit even more, but it kind of stayed kind of cool. But they just wanted a little bit of rules, so you can do whatever you want. Very little consistency, and this is hard consistency, and then they kind of diluted it over there. But the third edition had even more consistency in
Oh, and
some
Sam,
ways. Yeah,
you're correct, except I think that Planescape itself kind of borrowed some of those ideas
yeah,
from stuff like Theosophy and
hmm
from some of those 19th century
yeah,
revisions of esoteric traditions.
yeah.
So, yeah,
And,
that's where I was. What I was saying, your summation was correct. So, yeah, but
yeah.
I think Cook and Company were kind of riffing on.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
and what I wanted to say is another is that this is something that I think if you want to start messing with this in your campaign, you should start figuring out how you want it to work, because meaning there is no hard truth in this. This is literally make believe. So you should come up with something that is cool, that works with you. If you want to use the weave for magic, figure out how do the planes and stuff touch into the weave and other things, so to speak. So you can build your own version of D&D physics. But I suggest that using these books as a start to look at it. There's a couple of other books in that bunch pile there too that I'm talking. So yeah.
and also, I'd throw out there one of the other things that is that one needs to keep in mind. And it's one of the reasons why I find the Planescape material so darned exploitable,
Yeah.
is that the narrators throughout a lot of the Planescape stuff, and I know people hate the cant, some people like it, uh,
Yeah.
but the cool thing is that the voice, if you will, in much of the Planescape material is biased. It
hmm
it it it's these voices that are telling you stuff about telling us Burks all this, giving us Burks all this information, aren't necessarily reliable narrators. And
All
sometimes
right,
they'll say,
stop,
"Yeah, we
stop.
just don't know."
I don't even know what you're talking about right now. I'm sorry.
Or
In
in
the Planescape text, basically you
yeah,
generally have a narrator, right?
yeah.
Someone who's talking in slang,
hmm
or what's called
Yeah.
cant.
To get
And
the gist of it, so to speak.
and
And
the
Okay.
yeah,
point is that these narrators are unreliable. They
yeah.
have vested interests. They're either
Okay.
part of factions, or they
See,
think
I'm
they know
learning.
it all,
Yeah.
or an example I use is people in Sigil are kind of like, how some people in New York or London believe that they're the center of the world,
Y-
right?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
there's that kind of this city is the center of everything.
hmm
Well, your inhabitants of Sigil not only know that they're kind of they're central to the multiverse, or maybe they're not, because there is no center, it's just where you go. But
hmm
nonetheless, they believe that they're they believe that they're in the know, and everybody else is a Burke or a Rube,
Yeah.
right? Everybody else is someone to be condescended to, who's a hick from some local world or place,
There's
and they
Yeah.
don't know the
map of
truth.
Sigil.
Whereas I'm
Okay.
from I'm a sophisticated upscale Sigler. You're just a hick from the sticks, man. And so there's a degree of condescension, and sometimes flat out they're making stuff up as they go along to
Okay.
some of the Planescape texts, which
Got
I
it.
love.
Okay.
Unreliable narrators, man. And that allows the DM to play with the material, right? You can slant it any way you want or take material. Something could be a lie. Something could be someone trying to make their master look better, right? And I love playing with that kind of idea.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
this is as Bill is on now too. We did never go in there in our game. It just doesn't feel GREYHAWK to us.
And see, the thing, I get that, but I'm going to qualify that, Jay, if I may.
Sure.
That you don't have to import this stuff directly into it. You don't have to adventure on the planes. What the planes can be at times is flavor. Like what's going
Yep.
on in another plane
Yep.
can spill over. Like how many I've had our Canaloths, right, take an interest in certain things on Oath.
Yeah.
Because the thing that they're looking for on Oath is relevant to what's happening in the lower planes, right, and to the politics of the lower planes, and they want the advantage that this knowledge will give them. So perhaps an Arcanoloth has recruited your players to recover something, and they don't even realize who or what their ultimate boss is. Like the Arcanoloth is acting as a kind of finder, right? And he's paying you to recover something for him.
Yeah.
But it turns out that you're actually working for, a Yugoloth, or the Arcanoloth is under contract to another type of fiend. So yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of bargains and weird kind of behind the scenes stuff that you can do.
Yeah, and also think about meaning Altamira is next to the Sus forest. What if certain dark areas of the Sus forest are infiltrated by Fae, dark Fae, or the Shadowfell or something? And if you go there at dusk, you can disappear into another plane or something like that. You can, and these monsters come from there. So you can't go out and hunt them during daytime because they're literally not there. They come at dusk. They come from Shadowfells. You have to hunt them there because otherwise they disappear over the night and then they come again. There are certain conditions that when they appear from the Shadowfells, you have to go out and hunt them during those conditions, and it gets really dangerous. The rest of it is not there, so you can play with planner. And what about certain magic only works when these connections are there, or some magic stops working when there is certain connections and stuff. So you can play with cool stuff like that for your game.
I guess maybe because I'm so entrenched in my 45 years of my campaign, I just don't know if that would be the direction I'd want to go.
Well, you can have long cycles. You can say every 500 years the area shifts and certain things happen or something.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm not bringing.
Now. Yeah.
I brought in the Son of Orcus for an entire plot line.
Yeah,
but I didn't connect it to any plane.
No, but you can. You can say that what if Orcus succeeds every 333 years? He managed to take the whole area closer to the abyss, or open a gate to the Shadowfell or something and come through there, or increase the presence of the negative energy plane.
Yeah, Bill.
And all of a sudden, the undeads can go anywhere. And as soon as you die, you rise as an undead. These are cool things you can tweak your campaign with.
Right. I just don't think I need all this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Well,
I just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can make
first
up.
Of all,
right. I know. You understand? This is so Herculean to me. I don't know if I'm a grognard on this. What if Grazis wants to stop Orcus? Then Jeremy and Grazis is going to make an attempt to stop Orcus.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't need.
The blood work.
You understand?
Is still
I don't
over,
need all this.
This is like having a huge library.
Yeah, I understand that.
Saying,
and maybe I pick and choose. I mean, I'll give you
exactly. You can choose one chapter out of one book.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I'm going to give you an example. We went on an adventure, and at the very end, an entire plane was destroyed, a demi-plane. Does anyone know what adventure that is? It's published. It's published source. And you destroy the plane itself.
Yeah.
Okay, which one?
Frank Menser wrote it.
No, you don't destroy plane.
Okay.
No. Frank Menser. You lost a character.
Oh.
Yep. It's Egg of the Phoenix.
Egg of the Phoenix, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the plane of Sepulchre.
I think the published version of that is Menser and Jaquet.
Yeah, it is. It is. But all the Falxit things and stuff, it's all.
Yeah.
So I get the. Yeah. I love, that's why I used to like when they did Ravenloft Adventures and they threw you and you slipped into Ravenloft. And when they made it its own setting, it lost its mystique to me. I don't know.
Let me give you another example,
Yeah.
Jay, of two things that I've done in my campaign.
Okay, you guys don't. By the way, you guys don't need to convince me that this is cool.
No,
I'm
what
not
I'm
saying it's
saying
not
is-
cool. I'm just saying
Let
that.
me.
Yeah,
Can I? Okay.
Yeah, please go for it.
I just want to interject.
Yeah.
It depends on whether you want a more or less grounded campaign with periodic apocalyptic outbursts,
Mm-hmm.
as I like to put it, where you have here's
Right.
a demon lord, but you can also have moments of creepiness or incursion from another world. For example,
Yep.
two things that have happened in my campaign is that there is a place. I won't mention the city in case other player characters come upon it, but there is a place in a particular town that is unstable because of activity that took place there. And if you step into a building, you wind up going up the stairs and you realize that there's a kind of shielding just outside the building, and that you've just stepped into the elemental plane of fire. This structure coexists on the elemental plane of fire for certain intervals of time, right? And unfortunately, maybe some creatures from the elemental plane of fire notice you looking out at them and decide to start ramming the shield that's protecting the building. If you run the hell out, which some PCs do, you wind up coming out of another building because of how the space and time are distorted in this area. There's also an incursion of Yeth hounds, right? Because there was direct bleed over from the ethereal plane. Now, the Yeth hounds are not going to be necessarily some apocalyptic doom kind of thing, right?
Right.
But they're definitely dangerous. And I think it's kind of cool, if that makes sense, to have it where the hounds keep coming in and you have to stop where they're coming from. Or else urge the hound that is here, if you aren't inclined to kill it, to go back home somehow.
Got it. I love portals and stuff. I mean, I have a portal up just recently, but the portal was to another place in the prime material. It wasn't. Here's my worry. Yep. Here's my worry. It's like every TV show jumps the shark. Mm-hmm. Eventually, Sigil or whatever becomes the focal point, and your setting fades off because of all the dimension hopping and all that, and it becomes its own thing. Does that make sense? That's what.
Yeah, it makes sense, and that's one of my criticisms with how it's usually depicted in these books. It's one or the other. I like it way more gradual, way more nuanced. It might simply be that you got a +1 or a -1 on rolls from now on, or a little bit more stuff like that. So I like it way more nuanced. You doesn't need the abyss is not just opening up and you fall down to the bottom. You might be closer to that, and things get screwed up. Yeah.
We jumped the shark a long time ago.
Yeah.
Jumped the shark and did a handstand on his head.
That made me laugh.
But no, one of the things I do want to point out with the Planescape setting is, I notice I've said mine for material.
Right, yeah.
I think that I like Sigil. I like Sigil as a setting. My players have never been there, but to be fair, very few of my players have ever been off of Oath, right?
Yeah.
But certainly, if I were running a higher, if I didn't have this kind of thing where most characters retire into stories, so called, after a certain point, like most player characters, if their character gets up to 7, 9, or 10, they consider themselves lucky and they retire the character, right? If you start going higher, start getting up to, say, 17, 18, even 12 maybe, depending on what edition you're playing, then I could see going to another setting or another plane for at least a duration. But for myself, because I like a more grounded campaign with this stuff in the background, for example, I like the Blood War idea. It strikes me as a kind of natural extension of stuff that you already find in the source material, in the original material. So a lot of people don't, but that's cool.
Yeah, I haven't used Planescape as written. I've just used I cherry picked it. Meaning Sigil is there. We've never really been there, but I like a lot of these to take ideas from. But that's how I always do. do it. So yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem doing that. I just
Yeah.
what's up, Gary? That's my fear is that overtakes the entirety of the Greyhawk campaign, and they're like, why are we even here? Why are we even in Greyhawk anymore? I can just bounce around between Sigil and wherever I want to go, and I don't want my game to become that.
Yeah.
So
The
But it's
and
where
by the
the
way,
gods
just a
lives
weird little
too.
point.
Yeah.
Sigil is, of course, the magical thing. According to Dave Cook, apparently it's pronounced sigil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he knows full well that that was a mispronunciation, but they did it and they kind of stuck. So,
Wizards of the Coast have been sticking to that. Yeah.
well, and
well,
it was them. So,
they stick to a lot of things. So
Yeah.
yeah, for better or worse.
I like sigil much better than
Yeah.
sigil. Yeah.
Absolutely.
well, the thing is that because sigils and wards and stuff play such a big part of my campaign, calling the city sigil, if it's alluded to at all, and referring to sigils keeps the players from confusing the two.
Ah,
So,
smart. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other instances where.
yeah, exactly, Sam.
Yeah.
Other instances of where we were on other planes. I know multiple Dragon Magazine Ravenloft adventures, which were all really cool because the whole idea was to get back from that adventure, and that's or it was like an alternate reality adventure, like a Bane of the Shadowborn, which is really good. It was, but
since you mentioned alternate realities and such,
yeah.
Now's the time for me to mention that article that was material that was cut from the first edition Manual of the Planes.
Got it. Yep. Page 42, if I recall correctly.
Yep. Plain speaking. Back after the Manual of the Planes came out, Jeff Grubb published 3 articles in Dragon Magazine, which consisted of material that had been cut from the Manual of the Planes.
Okay. Tuning into the outer planes. Right.
And yes, this is an incredibly cool idea, which I still have at work in my campaign. My characters dread hearing musical notes.
Yeah, this is something they elaborate on tuning forks and stuff here. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, the idea is planar forks are devices used in plane-spanning spells to determine the final destination of people using those spells.
Yep.
2 factors determine the final destination using one of these forks: material and pitch. Material is the substance of which the fork is made, usually but not always metal. Pitch is the note struck that guides the spell to a particular plane. And then it starts going into what notes and materials you use for the different planes, and also what can go horribly, horribly wrong, which I like. And you'll notice, for example, Table 6, random planar destinations, include transported to alternate material plane. So again, it's like there I at the time, because I'm interested in science fiction and fantasy and stuff, the idea of an alternate reality, in other words, an alternate timeline, could come into it. Okay. You could always, there's all kinds of different ways. Maybe you wind up on one of the alternate Oiths, but maybe you wind up on an alternate timeline of Oith, where say Eu's triumphant, right? Or Therisden has blasted the place, or some elder god. I mean, Rob Kuntz has spoken before about having a campaign, or wanting to possibly run a campaign where these eldritch abominations triumph, right? And I love the idea that the players could pass into something like that, if that makes sense. It's like, here's the Oith, and oh no, here's Oith as dictated by Cthulhu, or something like that.
Right.
But hang on a second, before we get too far away, I want to say that I really love, this is a really, really cool idea that you can advance even further if you want. You can add other things like beacons. You can add things that actually kind of tweaks this, so to speak. So you can add decoys, and you can add things that makes these go wrong. So you have to do your research, you have to be vigilant, and you can also place beacons and stuff so others can gate into you and stuff like that.
In terms of something you could research from the real world, there are, of course, certain stones or caverns which, when the wind is right or they are struck a certain way, emit a certain note. And one can think of how those could tie into the planar fork.
Yep. So you might have a fork that only works at that place, or something like that.
The fork is either naturally occurring
Yeah,
or
the
a
place
turn
might,
through
yeah, when the wind blows at certain direction, a certain speed or something,
and a
or
certain note
yeah,
sounds.
yep,
Yeah, and generally, I know that Carl Sargent played with some of that in one of the books, actually, one of the source books for Greyhawk, where you could draw from a certain site. I'm not going to reveal what because my players are going to have to deal with this soon.
yep,
But there's a stone. There was some stones that if a basically at a certain time of day or however long, every 5 months, a certain note would be struck, and there would be the possibility of manipulating that note and getting all this cool elemental kind of equipment, right? Or magic, I should say, not equipment, but you'd have access to some elemental magic. What's cool about it is that he mentions explicitly that a bard would be incredibly useful for helping with this, right?
yep,
And in my campaign, that would
notes.
also be not just because of music, but also think of old lore bards and the connection to the old faith.
You might
Like,
want to hear someone who can hear tunes properly, who have that what they
Thanks,
call
Rob.
it, the
and who also
yeah,
knows the lore of music, right?
mm-hmm,
That magic, because bear in mind, in many traditions, music, I mean, you talk about the music of the spheres. You talk about music being able to inspire frenzy or murderous rage in people
yep,
prior to combat. You have these kinds of uses for music, and the idea again, that's that kind of as above, so below thing, right?
mm-hmm.
When it comes to the music of the spheres, but with this kind of idea, what we're looking at is
Good luck, Sam.
a kind of cool idea where there's something that occurs, whether it was natural or whether it was druidic in origin,
Be
and
inspired by string theory. This is
they
yeah,
know
mm-hmm,
and they know the old lore druids or old lore bards rather know something about that through their tales and through their training,
mm-hmm, yep,
and can help it along, if that makes sense.
mm-hmm.
Let me try. I'm just trying to find something now because he's got my
Yeah,
fancy.
exactly, Gary.
That means
Except
that you
that
can
except have a
block planner travel by having a tune.
yeah.
That
Well,
that you can, yeah, you have like a sound, and you know that when you can hear that sound, that means that it doesn't work. Or silence spell might also limit that.
Yep, Sam, you're right. The material component of the spell is a small
Mm-hmm.
forked metal rod, the exact size and metal type dictating which plane distance spell will send the affected creature. There you go. Yep.
Gary
Yep.
mentions, and
Plane
I think
shift.
this is this is
Prestidigitation.
quite on the mark.
Cool.
Gary
Hell's
mentions hearing.
bells. Yes.
No, no.
Yes.
Before that, he mentioned, and this is so cool. He
Mm-hmm.
mentioned those musical notes from Close Encounters, dun 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 dun,
Mm-hmm.
which are used, of course, to communicate with the aliens. And then you see the. Here's the thing that I love about that idea, is that your musical notes, you're using these forks or using these stones or whatever else there are. The gate could open, and I've mentioned before on the podcast and maybe on here that Carl Jung, in one of his late essays, kind of postulated that aliens, the kind of things you see in Close Encounters, right, are the modern day equivalent or iteration of fairies and demons and things like that would kidnap people, right, or take them to another world. And then they'd have missing time and they'd be returned. And it's a similar kind of, and sometimes they'd have a boon, right, or an implant or whatever. The idea is that there's a similar, it's a kind of an iteration of this motif that you find throughout human history and folklore. So imagine that you sound dun 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 dun, and a gate opens, and it's a bunch of spine devils who are like, "Hey, what's up?" Instead of aliens, right? Or a bunch of fae, or whatever else. I mean, I
Okay.
just love that idea because I've always been kind of amazed and spooked by that image of the aliens descending from the ship in Close Encounters, right? Um, and I'm saying, yeah, you could do a similar thing with a planar entity where there's this light, and
You
from the
got
light
that.
emerge these shapes.
Les, you got that in my head now, and I have to ask this question: what movie is the keypad set to the Close Encounters theme to get into
Oh
a room?
crap! I'm gonna draw a blank. I'll fold,
This is
but I
for a
should know.
special hero point for tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
I
keypad that's set to that musical's tune, right? Yep. Nope. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. it is Moonraker as he gets
Oh.
into the secret lab.
There you go.
Okay.
My least favorite Bond film, which explains it.
Really? I love
freaking-
Moonraker. It's so over the top. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ironically, it was the first Bond I ever
Savage.
saw in theaters, and it's the one that I like the least.
Really?
I can say that I saw Moonraker at a couple of days after the world premiere at Leicester Square in London.
Oh,
when
cool.
I was there in
It's 1980.
Yeah, 79, 80. Yep.
Yep,
mhm.
yep.
Yep.
So
It was the same year I started playing D&D.
It was before Space
I was in
Shuttle
high
was up,
school.
and they had space shuttles and stuff. I mean, it was so ahead. Yeah, it was.
Yep,
Sorry to
yep.
go on a tangent on that, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun. I was
Yeah.
in London that summer, and they had the premiere in Leicester Square, and we managed to get tickets just a couple of days after the world
Nice.
premiere. Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. At the theater where every Bond movie always had its world premiere at Leicester Square at that
Yeah.
theater. Yep.
So Les, let me take a step back here.
Uh-oh.
We have adventured in a lot of other planes, but most of them have been alternate prime material, I guess, and most of them come from Queen of the Demon Web pits, right? These Kingdom of Sierra CD, we've been to multiple times. Right here, we've been here because these are the evil, the Pharisee elves rule it. There's actually one of the NPCs, the oldest elf in my campaign, GREYHAWK, is a refugee from here. He's actually a good aligned Pharisee elf who stayed in GREYHAWK and joined the knighthood and everything. So it's not like I haven't done it, but it's just these were cool ideas. I guess mine is more of like I need a microcosm. I need like a written up setting of something. I don't want to become once again. I don't want the whole thing to become the game itself. I want it to be like a side trek. Does that make sense? And I guess that's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
that's it.
Yeah.
There's also
Go ahead.
Well,
we were in the labyrinth. We were in the labyrinth once too. The labyrinth of Arachne. Yeah. We're in that too. I love it's just cool. Cool stuff. Maldiv too. We're there. Not the Night World, and Loth's prison as well. There's another one. So 4 of them. We're in 4 of them off of Q1. So it was neat.
I was just going to mention that, of course, the weird fairy place in Q1, or the weird elf place, that is, of course, lifted from a novel.
Right, and a lot of stuff, and
it's just for fans out there, it's the same novel where the among other things, it influenced the development of the paladin class, and it influenced the development of the depiction of trolls in D&D.
Set them lions.
3 hearts, 3 lions.
Yeah,
by Paul Anderson.
I think we had mentioned. So I know you have a lot of background on the planes themselves. Like where they originate from.
Some of the ideas.
Yeah, and some of the that's in writing. Why don't you discuss that? That would be cool just to see. I know you said you had that, so why don't you share some of the? Let me go to the outer planes here. I'm assuming most.
I was thinking more about the background because of the connection with the ethereal.
Right.
When you get into the outer planes, it starts getting dicier because it starts off as either something mythological,
right,
or it starts off as something from an interpretation of another culture's mythology. And then what winds up happening is it winds up getting retconned over the years, right?
Got it.
Different
Okay.
things accrue.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where we could go through all the planes.
We don't have to go through all of them. I was just saying some instances would be really
cool.
But
some of my favorites, I think.
Yeah.
There was a really good article in Dragon that tied the classical Hades into
Greek Hades.
Exactly. The classical Greek and Roman Hades it folded it into the D&D setting and described the levels according to that. And I still will crib, much in the same way that I love. It's not as great an article as, say, Ed's Hell's article or Roger Moore's Astral Planes article, but both of which I highly recommend. But the Hades article has enough stuff where you could go ahead and take stuff, if that makes sense. And I like to pepper. I like some of the 3rd edition lore about Hades, but I like to pepper it with some classical references.
So I mean, who hasn't been to the River Styx in their game? I bet
Exactly.
you almost every.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, we've even did that one time
Yeah, see?
to pull something, but we went.
There
That
you
was it.
go.
We never went back. That's what I'm saying. Is
No,
we
but
went.
that's usually
Yeah,
it's a one-way
yeah, we
thing
went there
or
for
special.
for a specific. Yeah,
But
don't want.
that's how I think you should do this. It's
Yeah,
not a place you stay forever. It's
and
a place. Yeah.
that's another thing Bill's working on is Baba Yaga's hut. That's another like is that it's a tesseract or it may be or is it another is it an alternate material plane? What is it? Well, what is inside that? That's a good question.
It's also cool that some of these is like cosmology that they are so weird that we have a hard time grasping it, so to speak.
Yeah,
Our
right,
minds are
right.
not really good enough. I like it to liken this with real world physics in that sense because that's where I get a lot of the inspiration from cosmology and stuff when I read this. It's so cool. It should be out there, so to speak.
Well, that's one of the things we discussed this before, I think, on here, Anna, where one of the things that I enjoy is there are certain places that bend the rules of physics as they apply normally.
Mhm.
And the way that I generally convey that to my players, I mean, you discussed flying, but the thing is that flying a plane still uses normal physics, right? I mean, the rules of this world still apply to them. What I like to do is have places where, because the nature of reality is bent, when you're walking normally, your every other sense is telling you that you're walking upside down, or that something you'll look and something will seem far away, and then you take 2 steps and you're there.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
when you go to mental planes, you don't have the three physical traits. You only have wisdom, intelligence, and charisma, and
it's
your
like
charisma
I'm gonna
becomes your
find that.
movement rate, so to speak, and
one
stuff.
of the
So
things I do. I mean, one of the
Let me
things that
find that,
mentioned, and
Gary.
actually, I'm glad someone pointed it out before, was an analogy to the black and white lodge in Twin Peaks, right? The idea that once you step behind that
Right.
curtain, you're in the lodge, everything goes crazy.
yeah,
There are doubles. There are weird inexplicably placed statues, and paintings. There is furniture there with no particular, and a weird Formica table. There's stuff there that just, and it makes sense in a dream kind of way, but it doesn't make sense in a linear way.
So so you said a bad word
Which one?
for Micah.
Oh, okay,
I worked for Wilson Art for 29 years, so
gotcha.
Formica is a brand, just like a Kleenex. I'm just sorry, I'm just busting.
that's funny.
And
Yeah.
it is.
You would never
And
know that.
Gary's right. That's another thing that I like playing with is stuff like
See if I can
TARDISes.
find this.
Bigger
So
on the inside than on the out.
it's probably going to be here 9th level. So there's a spell in Tome of Magic, and this gave me an idea for an adventure I'm going to do. Is it in here? Yep, here it is. Estate transference. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So it's 9th level, permanent. This powerful spell allows the caster to transfer a large area of land in the prime material plane to any of the elemental planes. So basically, you're taking your wizard, your high level. So you got to be 18th level or whatever. And you're like, you know what? I just want to get away from it all. What's the duration here? Permanent. Yeah. So you can move. You can move your entire lands. Your tower or whatever, and just move it off to an elemental plane, which is cool. So it says like you must surrender your cell. It tells you how to do it, which I thought was cool back then in 2E, and all the other components you need, and just so I may have a high level adventure. When I talk about high, I'm talking 12th, 13th, where they have to go find one of these estates from someone who's hiding out or whatever, and they have to go there, and it would be on one of the other planes. I think that would be neat. So, I mean, that would be that's a limit of what I do. But it's one off. You're going to go there, and then that's it. But I think that would be neat to do. So,
Can I recommend, Jay? Do you happen to have Dragon 357 handy?
probably not. I don't have a lot of the Dragon 300s, but let me take a look. Is there anything else good in that one? Because if there is, then I may have it. Let me take a look.
Oh yeah, there should be quite a bit of good material in there. But
let me take a look. I may have it. I can't switch back to main screen because my thing's acting wonky. Probably because of a recent update in Windows. Yeah. So let me go here. Let me go here. Let me go here. Let me go to Dragons. So we're looking for 357. Well, it's probably a 1 in 5 shot that I have it. Yes, I do. Is this one of the ones Gary's articles are in?
I believe so.
Well, then,
But
yeah, there you go. Then I have
in
it.
this case, we're going to be looking at page 52.
Okay. Oh, that's one of the better pictures of Demogorgon I've seen too.
Oh yeah.
You said 52?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Sapling sprout spells and seeds. Fantastic. Yeah.
And these are basically,
go.
this article involves planar plants.
Mhm.
Oh, cool.
Planar plant life. And so there's in my this is the way that you can work this in, right? Or a way that you can work it in. There are any number. Maybe something from that plane has made its way to this world, right?
Okay.
Now, maybe the plant is just there corrupting stuff or altering stuff, or maybe someone acquired it and made a poultice or a potion or something from it and is offering that for sale, right?
Right.
That is going to be a rare item unless you have a lot of characters who are magically capable of going to different elemental planes or outer planes and taking stuff and then bringing it back. Basically these are going to be kind of rare items, right? Any kind of potion or everything. And that's when people start killing each other and other entities start getting interested. So you can have it where maybe the plant itself has somehow bled over into the prime material, or maybe someone has made a potion or something similar. I believe there's actually an article on something similar to that in one of the Dragon Annuals. And the idea is, well, now everybody wants it. And what's worse is the fact that everybody seems to want this potion, or a lot of people, there are a number of interested parties, has also drawn the attention of an elemental or a fiend or something that has an interest in that particular plant.
It reminds me of a real life plant that was in the court of, I forget which king of France, for years, that people were trying to get branches off of it so they could plant it themselves. What was it?
I know darn it, I know that too, because that was
something that's every day now.
Yeah.
Coffee,
yeah. What was the
they had taken it from Ethiopia, and there was one plant, and only the royalty and was in France, and then someone finally got one, and then from there it went. Yeah, pretty interesting, neat stuff. But this would be on the same level, yeah.
And also, I'm going to notice an amusing pun in there. Yeah. One of the plants is called the gin blossom, DJINN.
Yeah, okay, like a genie.
Yeah, but also like gin blossom, as in, no, not the band, but if you're a little older, then you remember it being slang for somebody's nose or for a woman who's an alcoholic. So that I find that kind of amusing that there's a gin blossom listed here, but it's not that one.
Well, it's a cool idea. Someone's dying and you have to get one of these to save them. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Gygax really came up with the Odd Alley long before J.K. Rowling. Yeah. Could she have been a fan? My guess is, Gary, no. I don't think she was a Greyhawker. But I could be wrong. But yeah, Odd Alley is in Greyhawk City, right?
Yep. Although weirdly, Gary on I think it was Dragon's Foot mentioned that he liked the Harry Potter movies. So there you go.
Who did? Who liked the Harry Potter movies?
Gygax.
Well, yeah, I can see that. But you know.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes people get the same ideas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Odd Alley is another one.
And a lot of the things that happen in Odd Alley is kind of standard tropes in that sense.
Yeah.
So it's nothing unique,
well,
really.
I think that the way he described the location has its unique flavor, but there are certainly elements like the Bazaar of the Bazaar, the Traveling Bazaar in
and you have the
Liber,
one that
and you have various things in say
the fortune teller and stuff like that.
Well, no, I'm thinking of extra dimensional stuff.
Yeah,
like and actually one of my a couple of my Greyhawk Con adventures have kind of been homages to that sort of thing, including dumping some characters in Odd Alley at the end. of
We're,
one of them.
we're going to save the World Serpent in an Odd Alley, I guarantee it, for the Ed Greenwood discussion at GaryCon, which is going to be our Friday seminar that Anna and myself and Ed have. I guarantee we'll be talking about Places of Forgotten
Yeah.
Realms and GREYHAWK and all the crossing over and characters and all sorts of things. It'll be a really great one. And I will live stream it. So, yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be a real fun one.
Oh yeah.
All right, so I know we're bouncing all over the place. So
well, we're in the plains. Come on.
Yes,
we're
yeah, which is
supposed to.
great.
We're literally.
So
We're plane
bouncing
hopping.
Yeah, exactly. We're plane hopping. So this is
this adventure. I got this.
Oh
adventure
God! Now we get into the.
This makes me laugh.
Yeah, same here, or cry, depending.
Well,
on,
yeah, because I hate Modrons and Flumps. I hate I mean, I just
Modrons is. I can understand why
them.
they wanted to do it, but yeah.
All right,
yeah.
all right, Mike, I'll see you, man. We'll talk before over at we'll talk over at Page too. So, Spirit. But like they got to run through the entire plane of existences, and one will become the new Primus. It's just like wow. So I guess you take crap and you mold it. You can mold it into something, right? Just like those frickin' Adiugs in the Gold Box game that do that, right? That's what they were doing. They were making them into statues and stuff, right? In piles. So Weird Way also. Where's Weird Way, Gary?
Yes, Sudrak, I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. Chuck is way behind Chuck is always behind. So by the way, I still don't have the codes from Sunday night. Please sit tight. I will beat him up tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm working on it. So I'm working on the pre-gens for that adventure today. So
yeah, I got a lot. I got a lot to do. I got a lot to do. When I got an adventure tomorrow night and Saturday afternoon. So
yeah, I'm starting to claw my way forward. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's. What topic do we discuss here now regarding planes?
I can mention a couple of books in the pile here that I think are interesting. That
please.
Ties into so we have Deities and Demigods, of course, first edition and third edition. Great. Third edition has even more planner stuff, I think, than first edition had in that sense.
All right. So quick question off that: Are Melnibone and A1? I know a lot of people put A1 in GREYHAWK. Are they alternate prime material or are they base prime material? What are your opinions?
I think everything. What's that? Please continue. Yeah.
Okay, I definitely haven't thought of that.
Yeah, it would be my general. Go
on, Anna.
I was going to say my general rule is that everything that is not GREYHAWK is an alternate prime, so I don't have to deal with it.
It is a prime. Yeah, it is a prime in the same way that Lankmar and Nawan are a prime, and it is a prime in the same way that at least if it could have been done according to copyright, Barsoom would have been another prime.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, Lankmar I actually have on Earth for me, so
okay.
I put it there. I haven't been there, but I put it there just in case. Yeah, just for fun. So
just in case.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah, I keep it separate because I think that the Lankmar supplement did a nice point of pointing out how it differs from standard D&D.
Here's a couple of books from third edition era that I think are really cool when it comes to planner stuff. And one is these are the Fiendish Codex 1 and 2.
I love those.
Hordes of the Abyss. This is tons of GREYHAWK stuff in these books. They are fantastic, and they're so cool. They have a lot of monsters, a lot of lore, a lot of cool stuff in them. So the first one covers the Abyss with Girasset and Lolth and a whole bunch of other cool stuff in there, and the second one is the Hells. I wish there were a third one that covered the in-betweens, but they didn't get to that. So these two are highly recommended. I think they're really, really cool.
What about this? I pulled this out of my library, and that's Elder Evils. Is that another?
Yes, yeah. Elder Evils is more way out there, so to speak.
That would be more
cool.
what when Bruce Cordell created the so-called Outer Realms, right?
Yeah, the Far Realm or whatever
Far Realm,
call it. Yeah,
the Far Realms. Yep. That would be more that kind of idea. And what that is it's the kind of Lovecraftian beyond the rules, normal rules of time and space kind of thing.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. That was one. That was awesome because that was one of the books. Now I don't have to show it. That was on the floor in the pile here.
Oh, okay, cool. It's one of the few
but
I have.
that's great.
I think I got it real
that's
cheap.
great. And we have two books here that don't tie into the planes thematically that much, but mechanically they do. And we need to mention them because they tie into this. And that was in the early 2000s when third edition went haywire. We have the Book of Exalted Deeds and the Book of
The
Vile Darkness.
Yeah,
These two are fantastic for inspiration. If you want to go overboard on the mechanics side of things, you can have vile damage, you can have vile spells and stuff. So if you want to run a bit more horror campaign, you want to take it out there mechanically and thematically, these books ties into the planner mechanics a lot, so to speak.
Why did that come up there again?
Yeah. So these books are really cool. They come with content warnings, which I think is cool because that made them I wanted them because things that come with a content warning means if someone don't want me to read it, I want to read it. So that's
And then I was going to point out too, another option if you're into third-party stuff, but it has some interesting authors. Book of Fiends from Green Ronin Press.
Yep,
which has Chris Pramis and Eric Mona. And that does go into Gehenna.
Yeah, I have a Book of Hell somewhere here too, and there's some other. There is a bunch of them from what they call the D20 Glut period.
Yeah, well,
from around 2002 to 2005-06. There were like tons of stuff there, and a lot of this tied into planner stuff. There were demons, vampires, whatever. So there's
in this case, I think the two authors kind of provide where you could see where you could file off some stuff from the Green Ronin stuff and make it a little Greyhawkish. With Mona and Promise's contributions. And also, along those lines, I would recommend people look at some of those issues of Dragon magazines from around the time. I know in Dragon, I think it was 358.
Yeah, the Paizo era. Yeah.
You had Schneider's bit on the River Styx, right?
Yep.
And likewise, you had Eric Boyd did Gazing into the Abyss in 357, and Robert Schwab did, I think it was 356. There was another article on the Abyss.
Yep. I think that was a golden era of experimentation. Yeah.
Exactly. You've got those, and you've got all the Demonomicon articles, which quite often touch on details of
they
their
are the
home
ones
planes.
that became these two books. Those articles became
Yeah, but they're not identical, and there is
no,
material
exactly.
that's
They're not.
divergent.
They used the articles and revised them and expanded on them, and they became these books. Yeah.
And sometimes it's worth looking back because there might be something that was dropped.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What about this Dead Gods there?
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. This is now we're getting into the far realm stuff almost.
Oh, okay.
This is cool because it ties in mechanically and thematically to what you might want to do if for Tharistun and other cults and stuff. You might take inspiration from this to create a Tharistun cult or something.
With this, I should emphasize the scenarios in Dead Gods. One of them in particular kind of touches on the meta narrative, the overall narrative with Orcus. Yeah, exactly.
So if I recall, this is the top 30 of all time adventure.
Yeah.
In there, is that correct, Gary? I thought it was one of the ones. So yeah, which is interesting. But okay.
Same thing with that Elder Evils. That's another one. If you want the Elder Elemental God, you want Tharistun and others, you can take inspiration from that book when you want to deal with stuff like that.
Yeah, Dead Gods is that, and the Guide to the Astral Plane from Planescape are both great resources if you're doing astral stuff or touching on astral stuff. And sometimes, Jay, another thing that I like to do is if the PCs get close to an area where there is a portal or gate of some sort, right? Or there is some sort of object associated directly with one of the planes, give your characters dreams. Have them have dreams of the place of origin of this thing. So you can weave in some of these elements, if that makes sense. And you don't have to do it necessarily in a direct info dump way, because this is how can I put it? It's a dream that the character is having that's being affected by the object or place that's plain touched, and in turn is shaping their feeding into their subconscious is feeding part of the material, and the other thing is trying to control that material. So it's like basically you've got these two overlapping sets of data that are kind of blurring together, and the players will wake up and have from a weird dream, right, involving say a dead god's body floating in the astral plane, and they enter through its mouth, and the last thing they remember would be all these things scuttling inside of it.
Yeah.
Well,
So
like
that kind of thing.
and I guess Guardians of the Galaxy gets close to that with like the head out there, the nowhere head, and all that, which is kind of neat when you think about it. So I can see something like that happening, just floating in the astral or ethereal plane. You got you got something, and wow, it could be valuable. Neat ideas.
And I think they might have. I was completely dissatisfied, or relatively dissatisfied. Okay, I was unhappy with the Planescape that WotC put out recently, but I will say that I do like the idea that inside Dead Gods you might have, although this comes up in Planescape as well, I believe the original Planescape, the idea that you might have parasitic entities or other entities basically either symbiotically or parasitically related to the dead god's body, right?
Okay.
Where basically you've got the corpse of a god floating around and things are feeding on it. And in turn they're infusing part of that dead god's essence. I kind of like those kinds of ideas, right? And I don't think WotC wanted to go far enough with it. And see, yeah, Sam says I was right in remembering it that way. Yeah, I thought it was originally in the old Planescape, and I kind of like that idea, and I like the idea of that's just a horrific, I think the idea of decomposition and being devoured kind of freaks out most people. It's kind of a disturbing thought, right? It's a disturbing image. But when you're doing it on a cosmic scale with some kind of entity like a demon or a god or something
Yep.
floating around, it becomes, I think, even more horrifying to contemplate.
Yep. I tied in Hawktails. I loved I so much. So in Hawktails I created what I called essence. That's the type of life force your character or a creature that drives a creature. And so far I have 12 or 13 life forces, different types, but there could be more, so to speak, and they affect how a creature lives, how it can make more of itself, and how it dies, and its mortality and stuff like that, and how magic affects it, where it can travel, how it can travel, and stuff, and it's really cool. So meaning you can have creatures that are mindless, and you have creatures that are automata. Those are created creatures, and you can have dark soul creatures and dark spirit creatures and phrenic creatures and simulacra and
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Soul creatures, spirit creatures, umbral creatures, unminded creatures, and
Okay.
stuff like that. So yeah, so these are things that are so different types of creatures, especially the ones that comes from other planes. They have, or like if you have if you make an animated object, can have an automata or a simulacrum, so to speak. If you make like a copy using magic, that becomes a simulacra. It doesn't have a soul like a regular creature has and stuff. Yeah.
But we have simulacrums and clones in GREYHAWK.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That means that they get that it doesn't get a soul. It gets that other effect, because that means that it's a created creature.
Yeah.
And that means that it has there's certain limitations to it and certain aspects, and it can also be detected with certain magic. True seeing and stuff like that can see that it's not
just ice and snow or whatever it's made
exactly.
out of.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just built it into the mechanics, so you can set spell effects and all of that, and you can kind of tie it into the mechanics.
But there is a kind of recent adventure where a simulacrum becomes sentient. What adventure?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What adventure?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Anyone in the audience? What adventure does a simulacrum actually become sentient and becomes by accident becomes the Major Antithesis. I think I have it right here.
Isn't it? I want to say Return to White Plume Mountain.
Nope. No, you find pieces of Corruptus.
Or one of the Vecna ones.
Nope. Yeah, that's it, Black. It's Expeditions Ruins of Greyhawk.
Cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Vane makes.
Oh, that's right. I was thinking of something else. I was thinking of someone adopting the personality.
Exactly. Vane makes a simulacrum of Igwolf, and then it figures out how to become sentient. I thought it was a really cool idea, and I'm not kissing Eric on his butt too much. Well, I am, because Eric is now playing in the fundraiser event.
I was just going you kiss it.
I'm going to kiss it all I can.
Yeah,
if,
exactly.
Valerian Ford is playing in the fundraiser event for, yeah. But it was really, really good. Eric is playing a running a Circle of 8 adventure. I think he's doing Vecna Lives. He's doing one.
Cool.
He's doing one of them at GaryCon. So, Simulacrum are not sentient. Nope, are not blue. Yep, pucker up, Buttercup. Yes.
Speaking of,
I agree.
Something, Jay. This might be something you could that you might find useful as well. I mentioned the article that was in Dragon Magazine about contagions, planar contagions, and illnesses. And one of them that they introduce is astral mold. And the idea is that, as it mentions, when people keep going through gates and entering different planes and everything, sooner or later you're bound to pick up a little thing. This isn't like Star Trek where you have the transporter to purify you.
Abyssal plane plants and stuff, they bring seeds and the
or
nasty
in this
way.
case, when you're passing through the gates or through the astral plane, there's a type of mold that might attach itself to you, and what happens is it winds up getting in food eventually. Yeah.
What if you have the nasty seeds and molds that come from the lower planes that attaches to your soul, not to your body?
There's some of that in here, but let me give you the description of what it does. Right.
Yeah.
If you imbibe it, if you take something that has this mold on it, okay, and the mold, you fail your system shock because, of course, this is I think 2E. Well, the toxin is not destroyed by stomach acid, and it winds up hitting your nervous system. And within the first hour, you start having trouble walking. Your eyesight starts going down, -2 to attack rolls. Your speech is debilitated, no casting spells with verbal components. Then, in 1 to 4 hours after that, you have muscular convulsions, -4 on all attack rolls, saving throws, ability scores, and proficiency checks. Within 1d12 hours after succumbing, you must save versus poison at -2. If you succeed, you recover in the 2d6 plus 12 hours. If you fail, you begin suffocating as the result of respiratory paralysis. After a number of rounds equal to 1/3 the character's constitution rounded down.
Yep.
And you require basically cure greater disease or wish to get out of this mess.
What the hell's cure greater disease?
It's a 3rd edition spell, or 2nd maybe. Or, I think, yeah.
Okay. And then let's see some of the other nifty little illnesses that they provide for you. Beastland fever, fading breath, which is
wasteland herpes. I'm sorry, that was from a computer game.
Parched mouth, and hive plague. I mean, there are just so many wonderful things to inflict upon players.
It's like when germophobes write D&D content. Yeah, that's an awesome comment.
Oh, this is quite nice. Limbo Lockjaw.
Lockjaw. Oh my God.
Limbo Lockjaw, which apparently has connections to the Slod. The pox, also known as the Scourge of Anthraxis. Planar rabies. I highly recommend, taking a look at this article. It's in Dragon Annual 3, Zombic Leprosy.
Who wrote it?
Let's see. This was, what is his name? He's not a very huge known author, but it's a really cool article. His name is, I hate it when they do this. Kevin Melka.
Yeah, I don't know. That's all right.
But I kind of like the idea. It mentions that these.
That's a great one. Yep.
Yeah, and it's cool. It's the same episode that has the weapons masters of Greyhawk. Same issue, and so it's worth getting for a couple of things. I love the idea of illness that way, because again, and also many of these things they have almost ticking clocks introduced. So if a character gets infected with them, it's a race against time for the PCs to find the resources to get rid of this mess. And so you've got a built-in almost plot or an adventure there if someone gets infected. But of course, you want to play fair and you want to make sure that it happens according to the rules. You don't want to just say, I'm going to be a jerk and inflict a disease on a character. And maybe you might indicate to them that there are known hazards to traveling the plains, and catching something is one of them.
And unknown hazards too.
Yeah. Well, you may know that there is a hazard without knowing the precise details
Yeah,
of what kind of
they're
hazard.
known unknowns and the unknown unknowns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that'll be at the next Defense Department briefing about the planes. So,
exactly. They will use that expression from. Yep, that's a good one.
So yeah. So that's a neat article too. I would recommend, because again, it's a way that you can tie in the planes. This was originally a Planescape related article, but it's all about stuff that you carry back with you to the Prime, right? Which is what I like about it. So you have this as kind of background, and yeah, I mean, it mentions you can catch things from the bodies of dead gods, depending on the nature of the god. I mean, these are cool kind of little ideas.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Oh, Mike Disney.
Hello.
Wow, Mike.
Welcome.
I was lurking there. What is going on, man? I hope you're doing well. Look at that, right to your shout out. Hopefully that's good.
Mike
still.
Disney in the house.
Mike, it's good to see you again, man. Yeah, we're talking the planes, the outer inner planes, all sorts of planar stuff now. Just having fun with it, bouncing around a lot. So I have a giveaway tonight. It's a reprint of the brand new gold level Royal of the GREYHAWK Gazetteer revised. Now this is a Lulu print of it, but we're giving this away. Doc Shoulder gave me a whole bunch of them to give away, so we're giving one of those away tonight. Exclamation point drawing. So, oh, no problem. Post stream care. Got it. Very cool. So it's good to see you all. Hang out. Sign up for the giveaway exclamation point drawing. If you don't know us, we've been on stream for 6 years, partner for 3, and longest GREYHAWK ongoing campaign existence of 45 years. So enjoy the discussion tonight. We're real deep into this tonight. So I've been a little standoffish, just a little bit, because for me, it's like, and I'll give you another one. And I don't want to get into this discussion tonight on the Feywild. I think it's a really cool idea. I just think that can overtake a campaign too, if you're not careful. Right?
It's a spice. You
it's a
don't
spice.
take too much. Yeah, that's how I see it.
But it took over Living GREYHAWK.
It's like seasoning. Yeah, but
it took them over
Living
completely.
GREYHAWk was like Indian food. It was full of all the spices everywhere. No,
right.
But the problem, and this comes from, since it was a regional campaign, that meant that they have to have all the crap in every region, because otherwise people who played orcs or elves or whatever it was, they needed a home and a base everywhere.
Thanks,
and that
Bill.
meant that they simply chopped up the settings into 50 mini settings that all needed their little hellish thing and their orcish thing and their whatever thing.
Right, to make it interesting. I got it.
Exactly. And that was the sad part with the problem with the one of the problems.
I would suggest that and Paseana, it's not so much that the Living GREYHAWK made an Indian cuisine of it.
Yeah.
They botched a Cajun recipe, if you see what I mean.
Oh, okay.
Where someone throws too much spice into it and it throws the thing off at times.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Indian food can be tasty. Cajun food can be tasty, but when you get that balance of spice wrong,
then
Jay,
it goes,
going back to what you were saying, here, see if this makes sense to you. Where I think that stuff can go wrong, in talking about the planes, is unless you plan on launching a planar campaign or a plane-based campaign. I'm going to mix metaphors here. By amping up the flavor, you run the risk of lessening the characters, the PCs. They wind up being dwarfed by, powerful Fae and everything else. Now they should be intimidated and scared. They should brown their britches a little when they see certain entities or encounter certain entities. But I would argue that two things happen. When you overuse it, one, it loses that impact, or it can lose that impact through overexposure, right?
Yeah.
It's Joker syndrome. When the Joker's the villain in every comic, he's not quite as cool as he is when he pops up from time to time. So that's one problem. The second problem is that you run into what was a problem for a number of campaigns and settings during second and third edition, which would be that you have powerful NPCs, and you kind of wonder what the hell the PCs are doing there to begin with, if you know what I mean. It's like you've got these powerful entities. What is the purpose of having the player characters? It's almost like someone has written a novel or a novel's background, and your characters are to wander around so that PCs can be amazed at all these cool characters that they're encountering, rather than make the world their own and change the world on their own. Does that make any kind of sense?
It does. So
yeah, it makes some sense because it's easy traps to fall into.
Yeah.
For example, dryad trees and stuff like that, are connections, right? So we have actually one that we've used multiple times. We actually had our good old friend Brian on a stream. He set up and let the audience decide what her characteristics were and all, and then we played her and we have her, and so that is like, they know that that's something that needs to be protected, and it's right near one of the towers on the Principality York side and all, and it's just like, that's cool. Now, no one's ever stepped into a tree, but she goes in and out of it all the time and may appear in other places. There's a lot of characters like that, that I love using. I just don't want to go into it and then start adventuring in there for years at a time. Does that make sense? It's like my bad experience. Sorry, Anna. It's my bad experience when I got my hands on this stupid the DL modules, right? And I said, let's try, because we didn't know what we were doing back then in the early 80s. Let's try these. And I got the DL3, and I'm like, I'm going to poke my freaking eyes out, man. It was like, whew. So.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference. There's different styles of game. Meaning you can have a fun house dungeon, so to speak, when you sprinkle all sorts of cool stuff in because you emphasize on the game, the mechanics, and the fun, and you want them. You can see these things as cool traps, and you want cool monsters that have cool mechanics, different types of attacks and stuff to challenge the players. That's one end of the spectrum. Then you have the other end, where I definitely belong, is that I want to build a cool ecosystems. How do these things work in the multiverse? And why hasn't demon and dragons and weird planet stuff overtaken the whole planet? Meaning, how can this ties into physics and all of the stuff, how it works? And it all needs to make sense in its ecosystem and all of that, so to speak. But if you run a funhouse game, you don't need to worry about that crap at all. You can just have fun, put cool stuff in there, challenge the players, the characters, and the players, and just go with it. And it depends on what the goals with the game and your play style, how you deal with these matters, so to speak.
Well, that's one of the reasons, I think it's good to, like I said, if you're going to use GREYHAWK as a launching point, or the Realms as a launching point for a planar campaign. The characters are going to get to a certain level, and then they're going to spend however many years of in-game time and how many years of playing, or months of playing, whatever, in another plane of existence.
Yeah.
That's cool, but it can unbalance or skew or throw off. The reason I mention that is that one of the things I try to do is I go back to some of those original articles, and I commend them to people, despite their age, that Len and Gary and Gygax and others wrote about the planes, and look at some of the and also I think the handling, whatever one thinks of the Gord novels, I think the handling in the early novels in particular Now, obviously, it escalates and it becomes a planar thing that may not be to everyone's liking.
I was just going to say, there you see the whole gamut from maybe too little in the beginning to way too much at the end.
Although, to be fair, with the character of Gord, because of his heritage, that's kind of set up.
Oh yeah, yeah. But yeah.
Then most characters don't have the kind of heritage and background that Gord does.
But on the other hand, in a lot of campaigns, the characters are the special people in the world. That's why they are player characters.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Gord's Companions, that was part of one of the campaigns that Gygax ran.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because I believe you have Melf, of course, and I believe Curly Greenleaf was Gary Gygax.
I didn't realize
one of
that.
his characters.
Oh,
yeah, I believe it came up in a
Gary. It was actually Gary. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
and of course it's a joke because a bald
Curly
guy
Greenleaf has no hair and Shirt has no shirt.
And also
it's so funny.
And also, if you get the three of them, if you get him together, it's Larry. It's almost like Larry, Moe, Curly, and then an extra guy.
I never put that together.
I don't know if that was intentional, but I certainly thought, hey, it's the Three Stooges, man, plus one, plus the rotating Stooge, right?
But you can also look at it a little bit like this. Let's say character's career. If a character career goes from first level or 0 level to 15 or 20 even, then the planner stuff can be the last 5 levels. He can play 25% of that. So it's like 2% of a character's career can touch this, literally, so to speak. And then, so that's roughly how I see it. It's something that you spice it in a little bit.
Also,
yeah, gradually introduce it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It also depends on how many powerful, excuse me, PCs and NPCs you have running around.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does.
Because you can be an exceptional character who still retired at 7th level, 10th level, etc.
Yeah.
Or you can be someone who goes to 20th level, and you're kind of like Mordenkainen. You're interested in preserving what he perceives as the cosmic balance.
Yeah.
And certainly the higher level druids, that's certainly
yeah,
huge.
but also this is not also one way of looking at this is as physical places you go to, but I also see it as forces that interacts things, meaning this is where the gods live, and the gods act through lots of means, so to speak. This is where magic gets its power from, and so magic can be tweaked by this, so to speak. So that's why I have the planes and the cosmology affects all the other stuff from the get-go, so to speak. So meaning if you go to another country where there's a cult of Nerul, then the cult affects using magic, various planar interactions of magic. It affects their magic, and it might reduce your magic. Step into a Nerul temple, and you are one step closer to Hades or somewhere, and that means that the physics change a little bit, not much. You're not down there. You're just one step closer, and that changed things just a little bit. So I have it way more gradual. It's not you're here or you're there. It's like you're one step closer to there.
Well, and also you may never. Again, that's the one hesitation I have with that is that if it's scripted for the character, in other words, if it's how the DM wants to lead the character to these planar heights, or is it something that comes inherently out of the player and the player's decisions and the character? Because there are, you might have a high-level thief who just absolutely has no interest.
Well, I simply have it. I run a sandbox. If they go into a Nerul temple, there will be effects like this.
Probably. There could be effects like that, but that's different from planar travel and getting involved in directly in the planar stuff. Now, I would argue that indirectly, most people, you have gods, you have devils, you have demons. These are real entities within the world of GREYHAWK. They're going to take a vested interest and try to manipulate people who they can manipulate, right?
Yep.
Or if you're good, you will want your champion to step up and be a champion, right? That being said, not everybody, including the adventurers, are necessarily champions of
no,
this or
meaning
that.
The rogues and the fighters don't give a damn about this at all, so to speak.
Or they might come to care about it because it affects something of theirs directly.
Exactly. And you have others like clerics and paladins who are fully invested in this.
Okay.
much more invested in it, or druids and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But here's my rhetorical thought to that, Anna. Do
Yeah.
the priests care about the plane, or do they care about the worship of that deity?
Well, one comes with the other, meaning
One's an
because a lot of
effect of
the
the other, but they're not thinking about it, right?
no, they don't need to think about it. It's just part of the package, meaning when
Okay.
they get their magic and stuff, it comes from there, and it's affected by where it comes from. And if they go somewhere else, their magic might stop functioning because their god is not sitting on the shoulder,
Yeah.
and they're using that power, so to speak. So
I
yeah.
rarely have baddies go in, or good guys go into other opposing temples, but it is a good point there to.
Yeah, when they go raid the Temple of Elemental Evil, then they're getting closer to Zukmoyayu's whatever domain, and that will,
It
if they
it
go
can
into
have
evil
effects on their
temples,
magic.
yeah, that will screw up their abilities, or it might enhance them too. So yeah.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
vice versa. If they are guarding the good temple, that means that all the evil ones will be at disadvantage, which might be a cool adventure.
And
They
also,
might guard a good adventure, which means that they low level and they get to have all the cool stuff on their side. So that's another way you can turn it around, and they can use the cool stuff, so to speak. Their spells are overpowered. Their senses, they can detect evil way better than normal and stuff like that.
or the way that I would look at it too is, and see if if this makes sense to you. The idea that the entity contained within a site, or the planar leak or whatever,
Yeah.
gate, portal within a site, it might affect the magic. It might not. It also depends on how it's contained. In that there might be certain magics that contain it in such a way that it doesn't affect PC's magic
Yeah.
until the thing is opened, or
Yeah, and I have it that a lot of spells that you memorize, if they're memorized, they're not normally not affected much, but you might not be able to memorize because you can't reach your deities, you can't get new spells. But
like
the ones you have memorized function, but you can't, you when you go memorize them again, then you're screwed, so to speak.
let me
Interesting.
That's
give you
one way of doing
give you
it.
an analogy. I think there's that great TV trope for sealed evil in a can, right?
Yeah.
Which is a pretty common trope. But the idea would my variation would be, what happens if you open it
Hmm.
and then pour it out? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that's going to put out a torch, say, or if there's a leak and you have to be within a certain distance for that leak to then extinguish your torch.
Yeah.
Um, it's like, and you can maybe dodge it even. You can maybe somehow circumvent the effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, and maybe there are clues in the place as to how you could avoid it.
Hmm.
Um,
I have another example of detect evil and detect good. The way I run it is that you have, if you're neutral ground, let's say you have a paladin or cleric or someone who can detect good. If they're standing out in the square and they know that there's probably a disguised demon or an evil priest or something out there in the crowd, they can sense the evil when they're on neutral ground. And if there's a demon, he can sense that priest or paladin is good, so they can sense each other. But what if the paladin then steps into the evil temple? Everything is evil, which means that he's effectively blind. Everything is evil, so he can't detect evil. But the demon that lurks down there, he can see the paladin as a sore thumb that just like a bright light in the dark, so to speak. He can sense it, and vice versa. The paladin who guards the good temple can sense the demon clearly, so to speak. There's nowhere for the demon to hide. So it's very circumstantial if it works. And the planar mechanics affects these things like sensors and stuff like that,
well, I think that
targeting
goes
and stuff.
into,
Yeah.
to give you an example, right? Detect good and evil as a spell
Yeah.
works on what? I think in fifth edition, for example, it works on if someone's using fifth or a variant, it detects aberrations, celestials, elementals,
Hmm.
fae, undead, and fiends. I think
Yeah, there you have
within
another
30
one.
feet.
You limit it
But
by creature type too.
but
Yeah.
it
Hmm.
also but there's an additional thing that people overlook, which is that it allows you to tell with whether a place or object within 30 feet of you
Hmm.
has been sanctified or desecrated.
Yep.
So there's that too. I mean, you can just say this is an unholy place,
Hmm.
right?
Yep. And if you want to, you can simply say you only see the stronger source. Everything else is drowned
Yeah,
out.
I always say, well, this area radiates more evil than others.
Mhm.
That's how I
Yep.
handle it.
And see,
Yep.
I don't even like to tell them evil necessarily. Just this
It
place.
smells bad.
Beyond that, this
Yeah.
place fills you with a sense of nausea and
Yeah.
dread.
And yeah, and that was the way I always assumed that when I was younger that it was like a little dot over the head or something. But it's exactly you can might smell it, you might taste it in the air, but you don't see it. It's one of
And I
these.
think that's
Yeah.
Anna touches on an important point, which is when we're dealing with the other planes, and I love to do this with you know, I know the name is verboten, but I kind of like the way that one of M.A.R. Barker's creatures smells of cinnamon, right? It just emits an odor of cinnamon, and his players, as soon as they smelt cinnamon, they browned themselves, right?
Yeah.
I like the idea that you tie in the senses. It's not enough to just say it feels evil. What does evil feel like?
Exactly. You get sickened, or you feel in your stomach, or you get pain. You get your
Does it feel
ache
like a
in your
giant?
bones.
Does
Yeah.
it feel like a giant toad fresh from the water rubbing itself against your
Yeah,
belly?
exactly something. Yeah, and it can be
Yeah.
individualized or something. So after a while, the character can figure, oh, now it sounds like this. Then and you after a while they can connect the dots, so to speak.
And also tying in just the senses is always a good thing for DMs to do, not just
Migrate,
smell, sound.
perfect,
Yeah,
Curtis.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm floating around because I know a lot of people are just asking about Q1 in chat. So, yeah,
Yeah.
man, this is one of those discussions where we're going to go in 100 different directions on it, and not and barely scratch the surface. But I guess that's the point of it's being so general, right?
Yes, and I think this is also part of the inspiration because there's so much cool
Yeah.
stuff you can play with here. There's a lot of cool material to play with as a DM. So
And
yeah.
later, at some later date, we could do more specifically focused kind of things. How does the
Yeah.
astral plane function
Right.
specifically in relation?
Right.
How does the concordant opposition or mechanist or something relate to Greyhawk? How do the hells relate to Greyhawk?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we can be very specific later.
Oh yeah.
But right now, it's a good overview, and I think recommending those articles about the abyss and Hades and hell and the hells
Yeah.
and the astral plane and so forth. It's a useful, and the books. It's a useful
Meaning
overview.
how does the blood war affects Greyhawk and stuff? That I think will be cool.
Yeah.
Or what about the nine hells ties into the Grey Kingdom or the old Flans demon cults or something? So yeah.
Okay.
And
there are several ones. And Lolth, Grasset, Ius himself, Orcus, and others. How do they tie into Greyhawk?
Asher touch. I'm glad you mentioned Robert E.
It
Howard.
does.
Yeah, it's a very kind of Howardian, Barkerian, for lack of a better term, thing. That kind of smell of cinnamon. And the other thing I like is, sometimes with certain types of evil or certain types of presences, maybe it smells like something, maybe it smells like something that you like. Maybe you like cinnamon, but it just is the wrong context. There's something wrong. Or it's a smell that should be pleasant, but has gone rotten. You can think of various, speaking of Zugmoy, you can think of various fungi, right? And various types of decomposition. You can carry that over into other demons and gods who are associated with decomposition
Rotten
and
egg
fungus and
smell.
rot.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the smell of rotting meat that's been overexposed, or yeah, something that's been left on a table for 3 weeks, for a few weeks in a closed room. And then you open it and get a whiff of it.
Yeah.
So
interesting. This has been a real fun discussion. I brought up the topic, so I was the one that said, "Let's tackle
Yeah, now
this."
you have to
Jay's
suffer
to blame.
it. Yeah.
It's my fault.
Jay's to blame.
And I see there's nothing bad about any of this, and I just, for me, I want to make sure my Greyhawk stays Greyhawk. That's where my worry would be, is that we get too involved in this and we'd be
I see it as a part of Greyhawk. It's always been there.
I was going to say, there's a
Yeah.
flip side to that, Jay, which is that some DMs might want to go to that ultra realistic or hyper realistic mode,
right,
where they neglect it altogether because it's too weird, quote unquote. And yet that's always, as Anna was suggesting, it's always been a part of Greyhawk
Yeah.
from the get go.
And it's part of
So
fantasy. This is
yeah,
part of standard fantasy and old folklore and superstition and all that. So
So,
yeah,
on a final note, one of
yeah.
my two TBKs occurred when the group was arrogant enough to take a special silver sword from GREYHAWK guy
Mm-hmm.
and just use it, carry it around, use it. And they were at outpost number 1, and they were at the little bar there, and a GREYHAWK death squad showed up and slaughtered all of them and took all their swords back.
Mm-hmm.
There. So.
oh yeah. Well, I mean that kind of is similar to the thing I mentioned about that potion, right?
Yeah.
You've got a potion with something from someplace else. Maybe someone from that place wants that back and doesn't think you can have it.
Exactly. That could very well happen, and that's just part of there's a CRCD right there. It's a small picture, but yeah, one of my favorites. But yeah, it's just that's the way it is, and so yeah, Fed sword. That's it. Yeah, Alden, we ran Fed sword a long time ago. So and like I said, I've run stuff. It's just that how much we incorporated this into my GREYHAWK. I think it's case by case adventure basis. I just I can see, like, when I have demons as my enemies, like the son of Orcus, it's all what's happening here, not what's happening on his home plane, which is just the way we run things. But it's cool. Everything is it's been a great discussion tonight.
Yeah,
Really.
and I like to just one last thought. I like to keep some of what's going on might be going on in a demon or a god's or whatever's home plane. What's going on there for the same reason. If you're an actor, and this is the way that I think you should approach it. I'm not going to say, as a role player, you should emulate an actor, because no, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying the way that some actors approach character would be they construct what's happening in the character's life, even if that doesn't come up in the film or the play, right?
Right.
And so it might be handy to think of what is going on with the demon's home plane. Maybe he's losing influence, and the players don't know that.
Right.
And the cultists don't know that, but maybe the demon is losing territory
Mm-hmm.
and is seeking to regain through whatever harvesting souls or whatever other thing is seeking to enhance his power base, right, or restore his power base. So that's another way that you can think about it is you don't have to. You can have the demon just be a demon, but also you can think in mind, what does the demon or the devil or whichever other fiend or whichever other celestial, what's motivating them in this case? And what other motivations might not be apparent? And then that could come up in play too. Who knows?
Yeah.
So
infinite number of ideas. And that's part of the why we do these discussions, just to make you think on how you wanted to incorporate stuff in your game.
Mm-hmm.
Some legendary stuff here.
And hopefully we've thrown out some stuff
that
PMs will have a good time with.
Absolutely.
And players.
Les, what's going on with you? Got anything you want to shout out?
Yeah. Still developing, as I mentioned, I think a little while ago, working on a project with you guys.
Yes.
And with Steven.
Next Monday's next meeting.
Yep, and with Steven.
Yep.
And also working on some articles on my own, and also this may be of interest to some of the good folks out there in the audience. The next time I will be on the GREYHAWK podcast, GREYHAWKcast, with Wiley and Matthew. I think we'll be recording it either this weekend or next weekend. And the subject is going to be pretty obscure, but something that is extremely cool, or someone who is extremely cool and interesting. Margaret St. Clair, who was on the Appendix N list for two of her novels, Sign of the Labrys and The Shadow People. Now, Sign of the Labrys, I know that people might think of Moria as a model for a dungeon. I would say that the sheer craziness of the subterranean world in Sign of the Labrys is probably more indicative of a dungeon in many ways, with the crazy things in different chambers and levels, and the fact that you have levels and that you have to pass between levels. So I want to look at her work in that novel. and I want to look at the Shadow People because that novel, which alas is out of print, um, it played a major role, I think, in influencing Gary Gygax's thinking about the under oath, if you will,
Mhm.
and it may have been an influence on his thinking about the Drow. So I want to look at her work, and also she wrote a wonderful story. There's a lot of she wrote a lot of fiction that is kind of influential on the game, or it could be influential if a DM picked it for ideas. But those two novels in particular um, are mentioned in Appendix N, and I want to look at why they're mentioned in Appendix N, and what a contemporary dungeon master can appropriate from them, or take from them, or make their own. So I think that's going to be a cool look at an underappreciated author.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is normally what I'm doing when the screen's not up, but I just can't switch or risk it at this point without doing the giveaway or whatever. So I'm just throwing up the pictures as I normally would.
And just one last tease for that episode. She was, among other things, a nudist, a Wiccan, and trained in the classics. Like she's learned Greek and Latin and knew those texts backwards and forwards.
Cool.
So and a big fan of Clark Ashton Smith. So kind of interesting mix, interesting personality, and a dog breeder. So
I really appreciate your feedback tonight and participation, Les. Thank you so very much. This was, like you said, beyond me.
Man.
I know one book. I know the Manual of the Plains, and that's it. That's my level of depth here.
You should know, Jay, when you poke me, I won't shut up. So
it's great tonight. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Anna, how about you?
Yeah, this is this is one of the pillars for my game, so to speak, to have these aspects and stuff. But so yeah, this is a spice, and I kind of like fairly heavy seasoning on my games. So there should be a lot of part. It's part of villainy and stuff. So it's part of the ecosystem and the world, so to speak. So it's heavy fantasy in that sense. It's there, meaning that's what drives religion, magic, a whole bunch of stuff, monsters and all sorts of stuff. That's my rationale for having all sorts of weird stuff that would not function otherwise. Meaning a lot of these demons, whatever, if they had a normal metabolism, these things would have and existed normally. There will be no GREYHAWK.
Well, yeah,
that's why I want to. It explains a lot of cool stuff, and I also love to have a different metaphysics and cosmology and the multiverse and the planar, meaning the D&D cosmology. That's part of the bread and butter for my games. I love this. These aspects are one of the things that I'm really like with fantasy. You can go overboard, so to speak, but for me, it needs to make sense on its own premises, so to speak. I want it there to be there, and there should be a little bit of mechanics in there, so to speak. What happens when your characters die? Can you death saves and stuff? What if some monster could steal it? How do negative undeath? How does that work, and so on, and so forth. So a lot of that stuff I want there to. I don't want the players to care, but when running the games, I want to care because I want things to be logical on its own premises. I don't want it to work like the real world, but I want it to work in cool, mysterious ways, so to speak. But I want to understand how they work so I can make the world rich and believable.
Excellent. Are you on Friday night?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Gary, it's going one day at a time. Thanks for asking and getting, things are healing. Just note.
Oh, good.
Surgery number 2 is April 2nd after Gary Con. First hip replacement of 2. So, yeah, lots of fun stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, tomorrow night we finish. All of a sudden I'm feeling like crap. It's weird. Hopefully I'm okay. Tomorrow night, this is where we are. This is Wintry Wonders, and it's tied into the Saturday morning adventure where Holly, the head of the Dark Brotherhood, showed up, got some kind of magical key, and they don't know what's going on now at this point. It's in the middle of a blizzard, and this is where they're fighting. Like these new models are really unbelievable. So we're utilizing them. There's a dead salamander back there you can barely see, but yeah, these were some nice things. And I call this an elemental yeti, so it's shooting off all sorts of area effect ice storms and stuff. So and then one more here. Let me pull this up. There we go. Oh, that's for upcoming. Oh no, I shouldn't have shown that. That's for later on. So yeah, badness here.
Look, some planner influence there too.
Yeah, you could say that. Yes,
Yeah,
you could absolutely say that. So a lot of it is, not all of it, but a lot of it is quantum. Like that. That's a Reaper Mini that Mike Disney painted. That's Holly herself right there with her scourge,
Oh,
Priestess
cool.
of Leviator. She's a little too high level for this group. She's like 16th, so I don't know what's going on, but a lot of it's 3D printed. Yeah, the middle piece, that's Miniature Building Authority, but everything, and the light up sphere is uh, Stefan's company. Oh my god, my brain's off. Dwarven Forge, but the rest is all 3D prints from Gamescape or other companies. So and so we are going to have. So this is what's going on. So we have that tomorrow night, right? Finish that up. That's tomorrow night. Saturday afternoon this time, 12:30. I have a hard stop at 4:30. So yes, and we had the Section 0 last night with the Film Girl Project. Lindsay got her character together. She's got an Avenger, a half elven Avenger. I've already done the character up, and so this is the Bone Baddies. So the search for, and they'll be going into Celine. So that's what we'll have for Saturday afternoon, 12:30 to 4:30, and then our Gab, and I think Anna, your idea was how the soup is made or whatever. I may just do that one. Where you
Okay.
said, yeah, he's like, how do I do things? So
Okay.
yeah,
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
that's what we may do. More details on this coming. The connection is on the screen here. If you scroll down beneath the picture, you can see it. Now next down to the Now Live Undead Tumult. You press on that. It still goes to last year's. I'm going to switch it over to this year's. But we're about 6 weeks away from the fundraiser event, so it is coming. I got to add a new channel. I know Marquee Gaming's involved. I got to make sure verify all the other channels and finalize time slots for everyone. So we're getting there. It's more than 24 hours tough. It is 4 days of all these channels. It's not 24/7 though. I just don't have anyone in the middle of the night who will stream. But there's a lot of streaming going over those 4 days, starting Thursday night, going all the way through to Sunday evening. So it's it's a really cool fundraiser. So that's it. I can't switch. So let me just go back to that. All right, let's see who wins tonight. If you already have this, let me know. But I don't think that many of you have it in print yet. So because I have alternates to give you all. Last call, exclamation point drawing. And we will raid into, I think we're going to do Stronghold because they're doing D&D. I was looking for a D&D one tonight. So, let me go to Cloudbot. Any last calls here? I'm going to set here comes the giveaway. Let's see who wins. Entries are closed. Winner tonight is Dat Sadness. Congrats. I think I have your name and address, Dat Sadness. I think I sent you stuff before. So, yep, just let me know. If you don't have this yet, it's coming to you. I'm not going on an ending screen either because I don't want to crash it. So we're just gonna raid right from this screen, which is rare, but we're gonna raid from here. Yeah, I'm going to, man. I'm gonna chill out from this. I'm gonna almost crash right from here tonight. And then I promise all those GCs, gift certificates from Troller Games that's owed everyone from Sunday. I'm gonna beat up on Chuck. So. Yes, this is the updated 5e Gazetteer that Lee and Troy and all the other community people put out. It's on DM's Guild.
Yeah.
It's in 5e, yes. So you can get it in PDF there or buy it there. But if you're going to win it here, I got a couple. Yeah, I think I'm just burnt. I think I'm burning the candle at both ends with this work, prepping for Paige, waiting for Luke, all that. I think I'm just, it's catching up to me. That's all. I'm all right, but I just want to crash. So. Anna, last thanks.
Thank you.
This is
always
rare where I
pleasure.
don't have a stream
everyone.
ending screen. So
It's okay. Yeah.
yeah. So all right, I'll send it to you. All right. So here we go. We're gonna we'll set the raid up for Guild Superior, not Guild Superior. I'm sorry, Stronghold. Guild Superior is doing some alternate world thing. If they were doing D&D or Shadow Dark, I'd go into them, but they're. So, yep, here we go. What am I doing? What am I doing from this screen now? Now I got to figure out which screen I got to do it from. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Creator dashboard. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Thank you all for participating. Please follow if you haven't. Here we go. Raiding it. And then, hopefully I don't have an update downstairs. I'll make sure my computer up for tomorrow is updated downstairs early so I don't have the same issue with my. Hopefully there's an update of some sort coming out because it definitely messed it up with that. So, all right, here we go. Let's see if we can get like 70 in and pop them up a little bit. So you got old DM in there, Jeremy. You got some other players in there. Enjoy. All right. So look at that, 109 going in. Wow. 5, 4,
Wow.
3, 2, 1.
That's amazing.
See you soon. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry, I had to go from the screen, but I just want to. I don't want to risk.
This is good.
I don't want to
Yeah.
risk losing it. So did it go?
That is fantastic. 109. Yep. Mm-hmm.
There we go. All right, let me just make sure everything's good. Looks like it.
Oh, they're happy with the raid.